remember being married and they just won't let it go. So we found out where you were and here we are. Will you talk to them? If I say no, should I tell them to leave me alone? He turned a little red but pushed on. It would probably hurt their feelings and they'd keep bothering you anyway. Please, Jace. I let him wait for a moment. Okay, but remember what I said to Jeff and Angela? That still stands. If I do this, we're done. Don't look for me again, got it? I could see a flash of anger on his face, but I didn't care. I understand. Wow, you've really changed. Will you just talk to them? Yes, but let me ask you something first. If it were your wife in a similar situation, would you just let it go? He smirked. That won't happen. She loves me. Right. Becky said the same thing once. Still didn't stop her, did it? His expression changed as I continued. First, go and tell Sandy and George what I said, then have them come over here and let me know they understand. They might not be as easy to push around as you are. Then tell the girls I'll give them 10 minutes. No more. They need to be sure about what they say right away because they won't get another chance. I thought I could enjoy another beer in that time. I turned away, not wanting to talk anymore. He stood there for a moment looking down before heading back to his friends. I saw in the mirror that their conversation got intense. Sandy raised his hands and came over to me. I've always liked you, Jace. You don't deserve this. I feel a bit embarrassed by the whole situation and I'm done with it. I'm sorry for bothering you, but Tina is set in her ways. We're going to discuss this on the way home. I can't deal with her meddling anymore. I guess this is goodbye. He offered his hand. I shook it. Goodbye, Sandy. You're a good guy. If I ever come back, maybe I'll look you up, but not Tina. George never really liked me, so he didn't care. The women were watching me closely. I made them wait a bit before I took a deep breath and walked into their space. I sat down, and they began to talk. I raised my hand, took out my phone, and set a timer for 10 minutes. I could tell that annoyed them. Okay, you're on the clock, go. Tina rolled her eyes. Really, Jace? A timer? 9 minutes and 49 seconds, I replied. They spoke over each other for a moment until they noticed their mistake and looked at Carrie. She seemed to be the main speaker. I know this might not be our place, but... I hit the table hard with my hand, interrupting her. Finally, someone gets it. You're right, it's none of your business and you should stay out of it. But you can't help yourselves, can you? You want to give me advice because you're our friends, right? Where were you when she was with someone else? Where was your concern for me then? One word from any of you could have saved me a lot of pain, and we wouldn't even be here now. But when I think back, I don't remember any of our so-called friends speaking up. In fact, many of you helped her cover it up. Forget that. Forget this. Just forget it. Let me reset the timer. They all sat there shocked before Carrie broke the silence. She sounded frustrated. Jace, please, it was a mistake. She didn't mean for this to happen. We didn't know how to respond. She's upset. Her family barely talks to her anymore, and her job is at risk. She cried when she found out you saved her job. I think she's learned her lesson. It's time for you to let go of your pride and think about taking her back. I sighed. Time? I'm sorry. I didn't get the guide on how to handle this situation. I didn't realize there was a deadline for how long I could be hurt. So now it's all okay? Kiss and make up and we live happily ever after? Not at all. I would feel a lot better if you all would stop bringing her up all the time. Do you really think you know what is best for us? They looked a bit guilty, but they nodded yes. Do you all feel this way? I glanced around the table and everyone nodded again. They talked for a few more seconds, but I interrupted them. Hold on, let's take a break from this for a moment. Carrie, if you found out George was being unfaithful and all of us knew but didn't tell you, would that be okay? Would it be true that the person would be forgiven in time? Do you love him that much? She frowned, but said that eventually she would. And if the person he was with was someone you knew, maybe even a friend, could you forgive them too? She looked uncomfortable and everyone seemed a bit anxious. I'd like to think I would after some time if I believed they were really sorry. I smiled. Well, that's good, because Jan and George have been involved for about 8 months. Honestly, when I first heard rumors about you all, I didn't believe them. I intended to tell you what I heard, but other things came up that needed my attention. I thought it was better for you to find out on your own like I did. By the time I learned this, I didn't care about any of you. That's why I moved here. I thought I'd find better people, so save the speeches for yourself." I paused, catching my breath. The room was silent. "Now let the healing begin so we can move on. Carrie, tell Jan that you forgive her. Jan, in 4 months, promise her that you won't be unfaithful again and everything will work out. That's probably in some sort of guide to moving past these things." I took a moment to breathe. "Let's bring Todd and George over too and have a big talk. And Carrie, try not to criticize too much, or I might have to share an interesting story about you and a dancer from your last trip to Myrtle Beach. Did I mention that Becky has loose lips when she drinks? Tina, you and Sandy should think about making new friends. It seems this group has run its course. We can end our talk about me and Becky now, but it sounds like you all need to discuss things. So I'll be leaving. Let's not revisit this again. Goodbye." Was it a mean thing to do? Maybe, but I didn't feel bad about it. We all make mistakes. There was a big scene at the table with a lot of shouting and tears and a few hard words exchanged. Sandy took Tina to another table. He wasn't loud, but he was pointing at her, and she was really upset. Finally, Marge, the bartender, told them to either calm down or leave. They walked out, leaving just Tina and Sandy behind. Tina approached me hesitantly. "I'm sorry," she said, looking down and not making eye contact. Then she mustered the courage to look up. "We thought you were the best among us. You seemed really happy together. I didn't believe it when you broke up. I thought once things cooled off, you'd talk and get back together. Everyone, especially Becky, was surprised by your reaction. You really are done with her, right?" "Yes, Tina, I am. But you and Sandy are really the best ones here. Learn from this. Be more careful in choosing your friends next time. Now go home. Care for each other. And remember what happened with me and Becky. You can never be sure how someone will respond to hurt. Maybe we'll meet again someday." Sandy apologized again and they left, holding hands. Marge watched them go. They seem like a nice couple. The others, though, I'm not so sure about. I think divorce courts might be busier soon in your hometown. I nodded in agreement, then handed her my keys and gave her $30 for a cab before switching to whiskey. I was just as surprised as they were by my reaction. I like to think I'm a decent guy. I still do. But you never know how someone will act when faced with stress and betrayal. My deep feelings for her only made the hurt worse. At first, I wasn't really interested in Becky. She was a bit too flirty and seemed unpredictable. We didn't date for the first 2 years I knew her. She was the best friend of my business partner's wife. Cindy was always trying to set us up. "Please stop, Sin. We just don't click like that." "That's not true. I know she likes you. You'd be good for her." One evening, a bit tipsy, I smiled and kissed her cheek. "But dear Sin, would she be good for me?" She dropped the subject for about 6 months. Then Alan, my partner, asked me for a favor. "Jace, I hate to ask this now, but Cindy, Becky, and her date are going to the theater tomorrow. The touring show of Mamma Mia. I know how much you love musicals, and Becky just had a big fight with her boyfriend. Can you come with us and keep her company?" I thought it over. "I don't think so, Al. I'm not sure I'd enjoy it if she's upset. And you're the one who picked the show. You've been talking about it for weeks. By the way, have you chosen which outfit to wear? It's after Labor Day, so leave the white shoes behind. Maybe go with the black ones. It might cheer Cindy up." We both laughed and got back to work. Later that evening, Cindy called me. "Please, Jace, she really needs someone right now. She could use the company of a nice man. But I don't want to be around an emotional woman. She'll be fine, I promise. Please." I sighed. "Okay, but only because I want to see the show. Just tell Alan you'll reward him if he's good. He'll get it." "You jerk. Now I have to buy some scented lotion on the way home. Cherry flavor if they have it." We laughed for a minute as I tried to imagine it. Alan was tall while Cindy was shorter. "Seriously, thanks. If tonight gets boring, I might have to get back at you. Now let's get to work." We had dinner first. Becky was calm, but not annoying. I really looked at her for the first time. She was tall, slender, and had beautiful hair that curled at her shoulders. Her face was nice, with bright brown eyes and a smile that seemed to say, "I want to be close." Overall, she was very appealing. The issue was, she knew it and used it. I had seen her charm a guy before, and he was left hanging when she walked away. We enjoyed the show, and the girls sang along to their favorite song in the parking lot. I looked at Al and smiled. We joined in, and soon half the parking lot was singing together. Later, we went to a smaller club I suggested. I liked dance clubs sometimes, but I also enjoyed being able to think and talk. It was the weekend, and there was a small band playing. They played light, mostly slow melodies, and a few couples were dancing. Alan looked at Cindy, and she pulled him out to dance. "Would you like to?" was all I got out before a lovely woman took me to the dance floor. It was slow and soft, a comfortable experience. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For showing me that nice guys still exist. Cindy said to behave, so I did. I know you weren't excited to come, but I'm glad you did." "Me too," I admitted, realizing I meant it. "Whether you know it or not, you are a fantastic woman, Becky. If you tone down the flirting and focus on someone genuine, I think you'll be really happy. I'm not criticizing, I'm just sharing my thoughts from watching you." She smiled. "Thanks, I think. Do you really believe I'm a nice woman?" I smiled back. "When you choose to be. And by the way, you've got a great figure. Have you noticed I'm usually a step or two behind you when we're together?" She blushed and playfully hit my arm. "Thanks again, I think." As the song ended, we walked back, chatting and smiling. Cindy was sitting there, wide-eyed. "What were you two talking about?" "How Jay says I'm a good woman most of the time, and how great I look." Alan nearly spit out his drink, and Cindy laughed. I glanced over at him. "What? Don't tell me you've never noticed?" Cindy looked at him with suspicion. "What about me, honey?" He seemed unsure how to respond when I jumped in. "You do look good, Cindy, but it's not the same. If it makes you feel better, you're really pretty in another way." Both women stared at me like I was silly for saying that. Alan laughed. "Stop, Jace. Just back off a bit. Honey, you do look great, and you outshine Becky in some ways, but it's you I love, and that's what matters to me." Nice save, Alan, I thought, remembering how good he was at talking to people. Becky just smiled, turned, and playfully shook her hips. I wished I had a camera that night. Not to be outdone, Cindy playfully pulled my head down, nearly burying my face. We all laughed so much we were in tears, had another drink, and danced 3 more times. During the last dance, Becky was close, teasing until she could tell I was excited. Then she stepped back with a smile. "You're a nice guy, Jace, but you're still a regular guy." I got a sweet kiss, and she made me promise to call her soon. I didn't call for 2 weeks. That Saturday, I got a sharp call from Cindy. "You jerk." She called me that a lot, and I hoped it was a joke. She was starting to think there were nice guys out there, and then you don't call. Her feelings are really hurt. "Cindy," I said calmly when she finally paused. "What? What has Alan been up to for the last 2 weeks? You know he's been working late because of the Jameson account." "Exactly," I replied softly. "And what have I been doing all that time?" "Trying to distract Alan since you've been keeping him busy at work." "Oh. Yeah. Oh." Suddenly she was apologizing. "I'm sorry, Jace. I should have thought about her feelings." "Well, call her and let her know. If she's interested, I'll call next Thursday." "I will, I promise. I wasn't thinking clearly." I thought later about what I said next and how true it was. "Relax, Cindy. She's your friend. Of course, you want to look out for her and help her be happy. I understand. I have to go now." She was still talking when I hung up. I did call Thursday, and she sounded cheerful. We made a date. She wanted to go to a movie and then to what she called our club. I suggested adding dinner. We had a wonderful time. The movie was dull, one of those tear-jerkers that someone was making a lot of money from, but the dinner and dancing were fantastic. By the time we left the bar, she was leaning on me happily. I surprised her by not coming in when I dropped her off. She looked a bit disappointed until I explained. "I'd love to spend more time with you, but Alan and I have work tomorrow. We're close to finishing a big project, and it's really important for us. Once it's done, things will be more stable for us, so we're putting everything into it." The word honey seemed to brighten her mood. She gave me a warm kiss, then another. I had to gently pull back, smiling. "You're making it really hard to focus on work tomorrow," I laughed. "If I mess up this account, you'll have to take care of me." She chuckled. "You'll be fine, and if you thought those were good, just wait, I haven't even used my best moves yet." "That wasn't your best?" More laughter. No, that was a first date. I really like you, kiss. Keep this up and you'll see the best soon. Now go conquer the business world. Call me soon. The next day, she and Cindy surprised us by bringing a homemade meal to the office. You need to eat, right? She said, breezing by me. They set up a beautiful spread on the conference table, and we enjoyed a meal that felt like a celebration. Afterward, they cleaned up and packed away the dishes. I found her playfully bouncing on the conference table. What are you doing? Just making sure it's sturdy. Don't want it collapsing if we ever put it to good use, she joked. Cindy laughed and joined in. Yep, it'll hold. Bye, honey. Becky got up. See you this weekend. We're planning a lake trip, grilling and swimming. You guys need some sun. As a marketing guy, I know one golden rule. Always present things in their best light. And Becky and Cindy took that to heart at the lake. Both had new swimsuits. Becky's was simple on top, with a bit of flair on the bottom. Cindy's was modest on the bottom, but her top was minimal. It's a wonder we weren't asked to leave the state park. Maybe the fact that the staff were all guys had something to do with it. Alan and I almost burned the steaks because we couldn't stop watching them. Eventually, they laughed and threw on cover-ups, teasing us for our wandering attention. We ate, played in the water, and even joined a volleyball game with 4 other people. The girls kept everyone distracted, and somehow we won despite not being very skilled players. As the evening rolled in, they pulled us back into the water, nestling close. We were laughing and splashing around when they playfully splashed us and then dove under the water, popping back up with huge grins. Sorry, she said, smiling. We were just having a little fun. We spent a bit longer enjoying the sunset and the water, talking, laughing, and soaking in the moment. She curled up a bit, and soon I had my fingers gently moving. Faster, she whispered. I picked up the pace, and soon she was making soft sounds and shaking. After a moment, she relaxed. When she calmed down, she reached into my suit and held me, making me feel overwhelmed. I glanced over at Cindy and Alan. She was completely bare, and her figure would occasionally show above the water as she moved. I couldn't see her hands either. Could you grab my cover? She asked. Aren't you going to put your... She placed her fingers on my lips to quiet me. No, I plan to leave a mark on your seat on the way back. Want to complain? Not at all. I should get Cindy's cover too. That's her top, right out there beyond the safety line? Cindy squeaked when she noticed it. Becky teased her, telling her she had to retrieve her cover while Alan just smiled. Finally, she tossed it to her. Cindy's looked much lighter than Becky's, and it was entertaining watching her emerge from the water. I heard a gasp and turned around. 3 teenage boys, carrying their things, stood frozen like they couldn't believe what they saw. Cindy grinned, stretched, pulling her figure into view, and asked Alan for a towel. Not to be outdone, Becky bent over to pick one up, giving it to her while showing a little of herself. Good night, boys. Maybe we'll see you next week, they said as they walked to the car. We followed, enjoying the moment and laughing. That night will always stay in my memory. Even now, despite my heartbreak, I still think back on it fondly. We almost broke the bed. She seemed to enjoy every moment and got really excited during our time together. I still remember how close I felt to her. Our connection was strong and we spent a lot of time together. They would meet us for lunch a couple of times a week. One would bring it while the other went out. We discovered the conference table could handle everything, but the couch didn't fare as well. We had to replace it after Alan and Cindy had lunch there one day. We were planning on moving in together, but then we hit a bump in the road. Looking back, it was a sign I should have noticed. We finally got the account we had wanted for so long. It meant many long hours until we could hire someone. I usually worked longer than Alan so he could spend more time with Cindy. Becky and I hadn't had a proper outing in 3 weeks. She was a lovely woman and was used to getting a lot of attention. This made her a bit difficult to deal with. She had been upset during our last 2 phone calls, even after I apologized. One Saturday at 5, I thought to call her and suggest spending some time together. When I reached out, she wasn't home. I called Cindy, who told me she thought Becky was out with her work friends. Cindy then scolded me for not paying enough attention to her. I wasn't in a good mood. Okay then, I said. Tell Alan he's going to work the same hours I do starting next week. Does that sound good? Cindy tried to take back her words as I hung up. About 40 minutes later, Becky called me. Where are you? She asked. I couldn't reach you, so I went back to work. Enjoy your night out. I'll call you tomorrow." She continued talking as I hung up. My mood was ruined and I wanted some time alone. I went back to work but decided to grab a bite to eat. There was a little diner nearby that sold delicious hot dogs, so I stopped in and had 2 loaded with toppings and a big order of homemade onion rings. After all, I didn't plan on going out with anyone that night, right? I picked up a couple of breath mints on my way out. As I started home, I remembered a club Cindy had mentioned. It was similar to one we both liked, but had more of a jazz vibe. She thought it would be a nice change. They might be there. If not, I could check it out for myself. The place was nice, with soft lighting and dark wood. It had a pub-style kitchen and a good bar. There was a small band playing, and although jazz wasn't my favorite, they were quite good. I thought Becky would enjoy it when I suddenly heard her laugh. It brightened my day. This was where she had gone with her girlfriends, and it seemed she was doing what I was checking it out. As I moved into the lounge area, I saw her with a guy I didn't recognize heading towards the dance floor. That didn't bother me. We both sometimes danced with others. I looked around for single women but didn't see any. Weird. I decided to stay back and observe. I took a small table off to the side and watched. There wasn't anyone else at the table. They danced 3 more times, with the last dance showing a little too much affection for my comfort. The kiss at the end and the one at the table made it clear. I hadn't asked her to be exclusive, but I expected her to be open with me if she was seeing someone else. I couldn't deny it hurt. It truly did. I took it as a life lesson and began to leave, but then I remembered her saying she was out with the girls. I asked the waitress to take a round of drinks to my friends in 5 minutes and gave her a $20 tip. She seemed to know her job well. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I reassured her, saying I had to leave and that these were my friends. I felt bad for not talking to them earlier. The drinks were my way of saying sorry. She seemed to understand. After a minute, I called her. The band was on break and I could hear the phone ring where she was sitting. She checked her phone, said something to her friend, and answered, "Hi, honey. Did you change your mind?" She sounded genuine. "No, I'm tired. I'm heading to bed. Please say hi to the girls for me. Where are you? It seems quiet there." "The band is on break and the girls stepped out for a moment. I'm just watching the drinks." Just then, the waitress came with their drinks. I stepped out of the shadows. "The fedora looks nice, doesn't it? Tell your friend not to go to the restroom dressed like that. People might take it the wrong way." She looked surprised but didn't say anything as I left. I settled in the dark parking lot across the street and watched her rush out, looking around. Her date came out and said something, but she went away from him. My phone rang, but I ignored it. I didn't feel like talking. The date seemed frustrated and went back inside after a while. I wondered what she was waiting for. 15 minutes later, Cindy arrived in her SUV. She got in and started driving towards my apartment. I went the opposite way. Not wanting any drama, I found a motel, paid cash, and slept for 10 hours straight. When I got home, the parking lot was empty. I took a shower, changed, and went out again. I stopped by the office, but Alan and Cindy were there. I figured Becky was hiding somewhere, so I decided to drive 4 hours to the mountains. I left a message at their house saying I needed a break and would be back Tuesday. I enjoyed my time away. I walked in the sunshine, ate what I wanted, and even bought souvenirs for my friends. On Tuesday morning, I returned to the office early. I parked the car where no one could see it, and Alan looked startled when he walked in. He quickly grabbed his phone. "If you use that phone, I'm leaving for the week. Got it?" He nodded, looking a bit nervous. "Great. Let's get to work. I feel amazing. That time off really helped. I've got some fresh ideas. Let me know what you think." We worked hard until lunchtime. He seemed excited about the new plans. Before I left for lunch, I told him I would be back in an hour. Usually, I ate at my desk and kept working. He returned just 20 minutes before I did. Cindy arrived 20 minutes later. She took a deep breath and I raised my hand. "I'll speak first, if that's okay. Becky doesn't owe me anything but honesty. We never discussed being exclusive. I would have hated it, but I would have understood if she wanted to see other people. But she didn't tell me. Instead, she lied about who she was with and where she was. That says a lot to me." She started to speak, but I held up my hand again. "I'm not finished yet. Tell her not to reach out to me. I'll call her sometime this week. One more thing, did you know she was on a date? And then lied to me about it? If I find out you knew, it would really change our friendship. If I can't trust you, then you're not a friend. Do you get that? She looked a bit pale, and Alan seemed uneasy. Then she didn't tell the truth. I didn't know, or I would have stopped her. I'm upset with her too, Jace. I thought she was finally growing up. I'm disappointed just like you are. I gave her a piece of my mind about it. When? I asked. What do you mean, when? When did you give her a piece of your mind? That night. She called me from the club, upset. We spent half the night looking for you. Finally, we went to my place and rested for a few hours. You showed up and left while we were asleep. Can I at least call her and let her know you're back and we'll talk to her? I sighed. Maybe she was telling the truth after all. Yes, please call her. Now, if you want to keep that house and that car you drive, you need to let us get back to work. At 6 o'clock, I told Alan I was leaving for the day. You're joking, right? There's still so much to do. It will still be here tomorrow when we return. No more working myself to the bone, at least for a while. I left him looking shocked. The next day, I placed an ad for an associate. Alan was upset because it would reduce our profits. Fine, I said. I'll take down the ad, but if I do, from now on, we're going hourly. The salary is off the table. He didn't like that because he knew I worked a lot more hours than he did, so he fell silent. I hired a woman fresh out of school. She was very talented but lacked real-world experience. I spent a lot of time helping her at first, but she grew into her role nicely. Our business actually improved because we had more hands on deck. Ada and I kept the ideas flowing while Alan dealt with contacts and sales. I called Becky as I promised. She didn't know what to say. I waited for her response. I'm sorry, she finally said. For what? I replied, not wanting to make it easy for her. For lying to you. For going out without telling you. I was feeling restless and just wanted to get out. I wasn't going to get serious with him. I just needed someone to be there. I surprised her. I understand. You didn't make any promises, but I expected honesty and you didn't tell the truth. Help me understand how I can trust you again to move forward. I was hoping for more and I thought you were too. Ah well, a leopard's spots and all that. That comment made her very angry. Why do you always think I can't measure up? You must have been so proud of yourself thinking I told you so. I was in love for the first time and it scared me. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. I said it softly. I'm sorry too. I was already in love with you. I hung up the phone, hearing her voice asking me to stay. I didn't talk to her for 2 weeks. When I finally did, I was surprised by what she said. Would you like to go to a club on Saturday? Maybe eat at that new Indian restaurant first? I felt a wave of anger from her voice. Are you ready to forgive me now? Is my punishment over? I gently hung up. I didn't want to deal with this. Cindy called me. What did you say to her? I asked her out. There was silence. I thought she had hung up. Oh, what did she say? She didn't say yes, and that's what matters. Good night, Cindy. 2 days later, Cindy called again. I'm with Becky. If I give her the phone, will you talk to her? Yes, but only if she can keep it together. Let her know it's getting easier not to talk to her. If she wants to say something, she should do it calmly. Then hand her the phone. I heard them whispering for a moment. Jace? Hi, Becky. Jace, I'm really sorry. For everything. Can we start over? I want to be a new person in your eyes. Alan wants to grill on Sunday. Will you come? To visit or to grill? She laughed a bit. Alan could burn anything on the grill. Both. I'd actually like to eat something good. Make your potato salad and it's a date. I will. Thank you, Jace. It took 5 months to feel close again. I dated other people, which upset her a lot. I told her honestly why I couldn't be with her. She bit her lip, clearly holding back her feelings. When we decided to get closer, we had an important talk. If we become closer, it's just us, no one else. Do you get it? If I hear about you going out with friends from anyone except you, it's over. There won't be another chance. I won't check up on you, you're on your own. If you mess up, it's on you. She agreed a bit too quickly for my liking. I want you to really think this through. I mean long term. Don't rush to answer. I need to get tested before we move forward. I don't want to bring anything into this. For the first time, she understood I had been with other people. I saw her fighting back tears. All right, I haven't been with anyone since you, but I'll do the same. And I already know the answer. A week later, we exchanged clean health checkups and keys to our apartment. My time with Beck was always exciting, but the welcome back was almost too much. I felt worn out and even dozed off at work 2 times. Alan mentioned something to Cindy, and she told Becky to let me rest sometimes if she wanted to keep her place. She agreed, though not very happily. I still worked long hours, but not like before. This experience taught me to focus on what really mattered. We had been living together for 8 months when I called her at work. "Can you get off this afternoon? I wouldn't ask, but it's really important." She agreed right away, so I picked her up and handed her a snack bag. "Sorry, this will have to keep you until dinner." I didn't tell her what it was about. We drove to a nice neighborhood and pulled into a driveway. There was a for sale sign outside and a realtor was waiting. "Is this your wife?" she asked politely. "Maybe," I said. "I'll know by the end of the day." Becky gave me a puzzled look. "Well, let's take a look, shall we, dear?" Men often don't understand what's really important in a house. They focus on structure, but they miss the comfort and possibilities. She kept chatting while showing Becky the house. 3 bedrooms, a big yard, and a small patio. "Excuse me for just a moment while we talk privately, will you?" she said to the realtor before pulling me into the living room. "Look, honey, a fireplace." She wasn't going to get sidetracked. She pushed me against the mantel. "What's going on here?" "Really, Beck? Isn't it obvious? We're house hunting. I don't want to start our married life in an apartment. Plus, we'll need more space for kids when the time comes." I don't think she heard much past starting a married life. Then she jumped into my arms. I bumped my head on the mantel but didn't mind at all. Then she cried, then giggled, then got serious. "Where's my ring?" "I haven't picked it out yet. I thought we could choose it together." The realtor came looking for us and overheard. She laughed. "What did I tell you, dear? Clueless. Honestly, if we didn't help them, I think the whole thing would fail. Are you ready to look at more houses?" "Ready?" She practically pulled both of us along. I just sat back while they discussed locations, schools, and shopping. I stopped paying attention after a few minutes. We checked out 4 more houses before going back to our car. She wanted to see that last one again. In the living room, she looked at the mantel, smiled, and said, "This one." It took a week to complete all the paperwork. Our business was doing well. We had hired another team member, and Alan was training a new salesperson. With the large down payment I could make, we were able to move in less than a month. Of course, we didn't bring any of our old furniture. I let her go until she reached the patio and garage. "Mine," I said playfully. She laughed and agreed. I spent some money to set up an outdoor kitchen and living space. I even had a clay oven built. I loved it. We ended up cooking outside for 10 months each year and occasionally the other 2 months. Cindy felt a bit jealous, and before we knew it, new neighbors moved in just a block away. It made it easier to share rides to work. They walked back and forth so often that there was a path in the sidewalk. Things went well for 3 years. Cindy couldn't have kids, so they decided to adopt. After a long and tough journey, they were finally blessed with twin girls who were 18 months old. We hosted a small celebration that turned into an emotional time as we learned what it was like to care for 2 energetic toddlers. "Your life has changed," I jokingly told Alan. "No, it's just starting," he replied through happy tears. I was quiet as we walked home, and so was Becky. I paused at the end of our driveway. "When?" I asked. "In 4 months. That way I won't have to carry the baby through the summer heat." Our neighbors might have thought we were strange, kneeling in the driveway, hugging and crying together. Shortly after that talk, the economy began to struggle. 6 months later, Becky's company went bankrupt. She didn't receive any severance pay or vacation pay. She was quite upset. "Calm down, honey. Many businesses are facing tough times, even some of the biggest ones we compete with. We're getting interest from their former clients. I might have to work a bit harder, but we will be fine. And with your skills, someone will want to hire you." The economy only got worse, and she couldn't find another job in her field. Companies preferred to hire fresh graduates for less money, even though she had experience. She worried and felt down. She and Cindy joined a gym close enough that they could walk with the kids in strollers. This helped her stay active for a few months. She was never out of shape, but after a while she felt strong. She started volunteering for important causes, hoping it might lead to a job. I was unsure about it since she would be busy almost every weekend with various charity events, but I stayed quiet, thinking it might help her. One Friday, she came home at 2 a.m., waking me from deep sleep with a surprise. Once I was awake, she shared her good news. I got a job. I'm the new assistant event coordinator for the Sloan Group. Tonight was my trial, and they liked me. They helped 4 major charities. It's not as much as I was earning, but it was close enough to begin. She was feeling happy, and I held her close, making comforting sounds. It had been almost a year, and she was still not expecting a baby. We decided to visit the doctor. He reviewed the tests he had ordered. You're both fine. Everything is working well. There's no reason you shouldn't be expecting soon. I believe the stress from the economy might be affecting her. Just like animals have fewer babies when food is scarce or there are more predators around, women also have lower birth rates in stressful situations like during wars. Go home and practice. It will happen. But it didn't happen. The next day during lunch, she came to me. Honey, can you do something for me? Of course, what do you need? She hesitated for a moment. I want to go back on birth control for another year. I need time to settle into my new job and make sure I won't lose it because of a pregnancy. Just 1 year, I promise. I felt a little relieved. The economy was still getting worse, and I didn't expect things to improve soon, so I agreed. We were working harder, trying to pick up the pieces left by failing companies. It was more challenging than ever. If we couldn't meet their budget, there was another agency nearby eager for work. Part of her job involved attending events to ensure everything went well. I joined whenever I could, but she increasingly went on her own. She reassured me not to worry since she was working. As the husband of someone important in the business and a business owner myself, I was expected to support as many charities as I could. We chose 2 charities we thought were most deserving and committed to helping them. Sometimes we even sent someone to represent our company at the events. Alan and Cindy went a few times, but he was very busy, so he stopped going. Slowly, the economy started to improve. I could see some hope ahead. Beck had been at her job for a year and had received a small promotion and raise. We began discussing starting a family again. I encouraged Ada and her husband to represent our company at events. It kept our company in view and gave Alan and me more time to focus on work. Ada had grown in her role to the point that other companies were showing interest in her. We had an honest talk about it. I told her that if she received a truly good offer, I wouldn't mind if she accepted it. She promised me that no offers had been appealing enough to make her consider leaving. Yet, I joked, I noticed she seemed a bit down and was avoiding me unless she really needed to talk. I thought she might have received a good offer. I decided to ask her about it. You haven't been yourself lately, Ada. If I've noticed, so has everyone else. Is there something on your mind? Ada was a beautiful black woman, tall and often smiling. But if you looked beyond her looks, you'd see she had a sharp mind. She looked down at her dress, a sign she was stressed. I have thought a lot about what to say. My husband has been urging me to talk to you, so here it goes. It may not mean much. You might already know this, but if not, please don't be upset with us. I sensed this was significant. She took out her tablet, tapped on it for a moment, and then handed it to me. It showed pictures of Becky and a man I didn't know. They were laughing, holding hands, and sharing sweet moments. One image showed them dancing closely in a dim room. These are from the last 3 events we've attended. I don't think she recognized who I was or that I work for you. The last time we spoke, she was very professional. Perhaps you knew, but I didn't want to be the one to mention it if you didn't. Please don't let this affect my job. I was stunned. This felt like a prank. I thought maybe Becky would laugh when I got home and say it was all a joke, but deep down I felt this was exactly what it seemed. I paused for a moment before assuring the worried Ada that her job was safe and asked her to send the photos to my computer and make a printed copy. She stood up. You didn't know, right? I'm really sorry. If you need help, just ask. She hugged me, the first time we'd ever had any kind of physical contact in our work together. Sorry again. I am too, I replied. Just don't mention this. She agreed and quickly left the office, nervous about my expression. Even though I relied on my creative thinking, I was at a loss for what to do. I decided to do what I usually did when facing a problem. I researched. But with just pictures from an amateur, I needed more solid proof. His name was Johnny Walker, and he had no love for scotch. I should have been named Jim or Jack. Bourbon is my drink. He came highly recommended as one of the best in his line of work, so I hired him. It took just 2 weeks for him to gather what I wanted. We met at a bar owned by a friend of his where private rooms were available. I wanted to keep our meetings discreet, so he completely agreed. To keep things secure, I even bought a separate phone that I locked in my desk for our communication. I know it sounds cautious, but I didn't want Becky to find out I was looking into her. That could lead to complications. "It's all here," he said, handing me a small briefcase. Photos, videos, and interviews with her friends and co-workers. Some were unaware that she was married. She doesn't wear her rings at work. They weren't very careful about it. I'm sorry. I handed him a check and picked up my bag. He stopped me. "You're not going to do anything rash, are you? Like causing a scene or fighting? You seem calm about this, and in my line of work, calm can be a bit unsettling. It's not worth getting yourself in trouble. If you can't forgive her, it's better to just move on." "I'm not going to hurt her or him. They both knew what they were doing. They must have thought about what could happen if they were discovered." I took a moment to think. "I'm not going to hide money or make crazy demands. I won't fight to keep her. I should never have to fight for someone who wants to leave. She chose to break our marriage. I'm just going to walk away. Does that make me weak? No, it doesn't. It shows good judgment. Staying calm in tough situations is rare. They probably didn't think about the results at all. Most people don't. Do you have a lawyer?" I shook my head. I thought I'd wait for the report. He wrote something on a notepad and handed it to me. I often work with these 3 lawyers. They're all good. The first one is aggressive and likes to stir up trouble. The second one is great for stopping divorces, but not for your situation. The third one is the right choice. He prefers to keep things simple and calm, and he will focus on your best interests. If you don't have someone already, give him a call. Mention my name and you'll get a discount. He walked to the door and turned back to give me a few more tips. "If I were you, I wouldn't watch the DVD or look at the pictures. It won't help you, and it will stay with you for a long time. The same goes for the report. You already know what you need to know. However, check the contents of the red envelope. There's some interesting information about your friends and what they knew, and as you requested, we won't turn off the phone tap for another 2 weeks. Again, I advise against listening to it. Call if you need anything else." I took the bag to my office, took out the red envelope, and locked everything away in my file cabinet. I decided to follow his advice for now. I called the 3rd lawyer on the list and arranged a meeting. Paul Whitfield ran a small firm with 3 partners. Their office was in an old building with beautiful moldings, tall ceilings, and ceiling fans. He noticed me looking around and smiled. "We own this building. I insisted we keep the fans. They add character." I liked him right away. He relaxed during our meeting, and by the end I felt I had found a divorce lawyer I could trust. He agreed with the friendly separation and mentioned he could get a better deal. This was not an easy place for such matters, but it should help everyone if she didn't resist. "Do you think she will?" "I honestly have no idea what she is thinking or doing. When can we file?" "Thursday or Friday, whichever you prefer." I considered my options. "Can we do it on Saturday evening?" He raised an eyebrow. "This won't lead to anything messy, will it?" I smiled for the first time. "Maybe. Let's wait until Monday to serve her. She should be home by 7. Not at her workplace?" "No. Let her keep some dignity. Plus, if she loses her job, wouldn't I have to help her?" "Smart choice," he said with a smile, shaking my hand before switching back to business mode. "Call me if you remember anything else you want to discuss. I appreciate your trust, even if it is upsetting. I'll call you just before she is served, if you'd like." I got organized. I looked around and found a nice 2-bedroom house in a nearby town. I considered an apartment, but I preferred houses. It would mean a 35-minute commute, but it was a quiet area, and I doubted she would look for me so far away. Reading the folder made me very upset to learn how many people I knew helped cover up her actions. Their time would come, especially 4 of them. I acted friendly at work and kept up appearances at home for the rest of the week. On Thursday, she seemed in a good mood, as if preparing for the weekend. By then, I felt distant from her. It wasn't completely cold, but it wasn't warm either. We both felt relief after the evening, and then I turned away from her. "You seemed a little distracted tonight. Am I not enough for you anymore?" She was trying to be playful, but I felt a hint of worry in her words. "You've always meant a lot to me, Beck. I'm just tired. Let's sleep." I tried but couldn't bring myself to cuddle, so I turned away and pretended to be asleep. She curled up next to me. "Love you, honey." I didn't respond, still pretending. She probably realized I was faking, but she stayed quiet. Eventually, I could not take it anymore and walked into the gathering, which Paul called messy territory. I stood on the edge of the crowd, watching. They held hands and exchanged a quick kiss now and then. The music started, and I watched them dance. He was a much better dancer than I could ever be. I noticed little else. He wasn't taller or as fit as I was. My great aunt always said taste was subjective. As I moved closer, I stopped when I saw someone surprising. Cindy appeared right before them. They shared hugs and laughter. I wondered if Alan knew she was there. I felt like I was breaking through a crowd. When people saw my face, they quickly moved aside. Becky noticed the crowd shifting and turned to look me in the eyes, still holding his hand. She paused for a moment, trying to say something, and then let go of his hand. He smiled, looking pleased with himself, and held on. "Is this your friend?" he asked, finally releasing her hand. "No," I hissed. "Husband!" He turned pale and took a couple of steps back. I glanced at Becky. "Are you going to introduce us?" "Jace, it's not what it looks like, please. It's exactly what it looks like. My wife spending time with another man. I could say it nicer, but why bother? I could have called him names for what he's done. A guy who doesn't mind getting involved with a married woman." I was raising my voice, so I took a deep breath to calm myself. Becky's friend was trying to blend into the crowd. Many people were watching now. I called out to him, gathering even more attention. "Where do you think you're going? You can be with her but not stand by her when there's trouble? That says a lot about you, doesn't it? But don't worry, she's all yours now. I'm done with her." Becky was tugging on my arm, asking me to calm down and talk somewhere private. I pulled her hand away a bit too forcefully. "I know, Becky, I know. Don't try to explain. We're done, completely. You understand? I left you something on the dining room table. It should remind you of what we've shared." I looked at Cindy, who stood next to Becky looking scared. "And you? Don't ever speak to me again. If we're in the same room, stay as far from me as you can or just leave. But first, I want to know one thing. Did Alan know?" She lowered her head, which told me everything I needed to know. "Then let him know we aren't partners anymore. He can buy me out, or I'll sell my share." Things went downhill quickly. Becky called. Alan called. Cindy called, again and again. I didn't answer and deleted the messages. I kept my car in my small garage where the door was closed. I could walk to a grocery store and a bar. I didn't like the bar much, but the store was fine. I surprised Alan by showing up at the office on Monday. He started to speak, but I interrupted him. "I know you knew. Cindy almost told me, being the loyal friend she is. I won't forgive Cindy for helping her. And just to be clear, keeping it a secret was helping. Tell your wife to stay away from the office and from me. If she insists on being here, I won't. I can walk away from the business easily, Alan. That includes Becky, her new partner, or any of our so-called friends. Leave it alone." I had already contacted the police about getting protection orders. They advised me to consult my lawyer. By 9, Becky and Cindy were banging on my office door. I called Alan. "If you want to keep your business, you need to make them leave. Now. If you don't, I will leave and I won't return." I could hear part of the argument through the door. Becky was refusing to go, and Cindy was backing her up. Alan was trying to explain. "Please, girls, I'm begging you. This is his workplace too, and he has the right to run it how he wants. If you keep pushing, he could file for a restraining order, and that won't be good. He's upset and told me he plans to sell his share of the business. If I don't buy it, he'll sell it to someone else. We can't afford that, Cindy. Not now. We're finally starting to succeed. He's the creative force behind the business, and I just sell what he creates. This would ruin us, Cindy. Think of the children." Then I heard more murmuring and finally silence. He called again. "They've left. You can come out of the office now." "I think I'll stay in here. It's nice and quiet. You should go back to work and figure things out. And could you ask Ada to come in, please?" He started to plead again, but I hung up. "It's been an interesting few days. Want to hear about it?" she said, sitting down. My curiosity was piqued, so I nodded. "I was there, but you had forgotten, hadn't you? I was shocked when I saw you. Mac and I were trying to catch up to you, but you were too quick." Max said he saw anger on your face. I know you scared a lot of people. After your speech and when you left, things got chaotic for a bit. Becky tried to follow you, but Cindy and the guy stopped her. I was nearby and heard Cindy tell her to give you some time to calm down. She was upset, saying if she didn't talk to you then, she wouldn't get another chance. By the time she got free, you were gone. Many customers left after the scene. I doubt the donations that night met expectations. She paused and looked at me. Do you know his name? Yes, and I know his age, where he lives, what kind of car he drives, his background, and everything else a good private investigator would find. She shivered a little. You're not going to be mean, are you? Yes, I said, and she looked worried. I'll ignore him. Every time he turns a corner or hears a noise behind him, he'll think it's me. He'll be anxious for a while. Eventually, he'll realize I'm not interested in him at all, and that will be the worst insult I could give him. What about your wife? They almost had to carry her out of there. I think she was starting to see how tough things were going to be. I don't have a wife, I said, keeping a straight face. Then I smiled to make her feel better. But if something happens and you end up single, I'll be like a politician ready for a deal. Not all white guys are bad. She smiled back. I don't usually date outside my race, but for you, I might make an exception. We stood there and she hugged me. It felt nice. She leaned against my chest. I couldn't help but smile. She smiled back. I'm going to stop on the way home and buy an average-sized toy. I'll name it Jace for future fun. We laughed, hugged again, and finished working the rest of the afternoon. When I got outside, I found 2 envelopes on my bike seat, one from Cindy and one from Beck. I knew Alan was watching as I dropped them on the ground and walked away. I hadn't gone far when I spotted a familiar SUV behind me. I laughed quietly as I put on my helmet. Let the fun begin. I was riding my Yamaha Roadstar, a powerful bike. It was 2 years old and a great deal I had scored after it was repossessed. Beck loved riding it too, and we had spent many afternoons just cruising around and exploring. To keep them guessing, I made a quick right turn when the light changed. They were 2 cars back and stuck. I darted into a parking lot a few blocks down, waited for them to drive by, and went back the way I had come. They were probably still driving around in circles when I pulled into my garage. I carried a burner phone with me and left my regular phone locked in my desk drawer. I still used it for work and only kept my customers and lawyer in my contacts. Beck finally sent a registered letter which I signed for and then sent back unopened. My lawyer handled all the communication. She's quite fiery, he said, and uses a lot of strong words. She was living in the house and I was making half the payment. I told Paul to let her know the payments would stop 6 months after our divorce. During that time, I hoped to sell the house or she could buy me out. I knew that would be tough for her because she simply couldn't afford it. She refused to get a lawyer. Paul shrugged. She doesn't have to, but you can bet the judge will encourage her to get one at the first hearing. That will be her first step to prolong things. She's not going to give up easily. I could see it in her eyes. I'm fine with running up the bill, but at some point, you need to talk to her. Or you could just forget it and withdraw the petition. He noticed my expression and raised his hands. I didn't say go back to her. Just keep doing what you're doing and ignore her. It may take some time, but eventually she'll tire out and agree to the divorce. Let's wait until the hearing. Maybe she will see that she's wasting her time and start to act more reasonably. Do you really believe that? I felt a small spark of hope. No, he said with a grin as he walked me out. She asked her friends to help her. A big mistake. A really big mistake. News spread about my feelings, and most of them knew it was a touchy topic. Then her mother stepped in. I always liked her, so I told her that if she needed anything, I would be glad to help. But if she mentioned her daughter one more time, I would stop talking to her. My mom also got involved. I tried to explain my point of view to her, but it didn't change a thing. I left and didn't come back for 3 months. She kept trying to get me to see things her way. After a while, she called me crying and promised never to bring her up again. I think she finally understood. Now she wore the sad look of someone suffering quietly, but it wasn't working. She suggested I should see someone to talk about my feelings. The anger is changing you, dear. It's not a good change. You need to find your balance again for your own well-being. I thought about that for a while. I tried to keep my feelings separate from my life, but it never worked. It was hardest when I ran into Cindy. She still came by the office sometimes, but she knew better than to say anything. I think she could see my feelings in my eyes. Cindy and Alan were struggling. They were trying to find a way to save their business. Alan tried to talk to me about it once. I was calm enough to listen, but I was curious what they could say that would explain their actions. Please, Jace, I'm begging you. If you pull out, we both know I'll lose everything in 6 months. I've worked as hard as you to make this a success. I can't afford to lose my home or provide for my children. Instead of calming me, it just made me more upset. Really? You're using the kids to win this argument? Did you even think about how I would feel knowing my best friends were helping the person I care about hurt me? You should have thought about this before getting involved. Maybe if you remembered what happened the last time, you would have spoken up. Were you thinking about the kids when you were dishonest with me? He turned red and looked very angry. Come on! You need to stop and think about the damage your anger is causing here. She was unfaithful. I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't have let Cindy and I get involved. I thought I was trying to protect you. Do I need to really get tough to help you understand? That was not the right thing to say. You wanted to protect me? Then why didn't you talk to Cindy, tell Beck she was making a big mistake, or warn me to stop? I think you're not really worried about me, but more about the business. This cash cow has stopped giving, Alan. You're good at what you do. You'll find another job soon, especially now that the economy is getting better. You might not have as good a life as you do now, but you'll manage. Cindy could get a job for a while to help. It might show her the reality of things. And about getting tough, you don't know how much I want you to try. My mom says I need to let some of my anger out. Releasing it on you might help with that. Now, if you're done, please leave my office. Go work on your resume or something. Alan was much taller than me, and he outweighed me by quite a bit. But the one thing he didn't have was my anger. He grabbed me and turned me around, ready to say more, but I didn't let him. I swung without hesitation. I gave it all I had, putting all my pain and frustration into one punch. It landed right on his forehead. He fell down like a building collapsing. I stood above him, rubbing my knuckles. I think we're finished here. You can let yourself out and don't come back to this office unless I ask you to. The door was open, and Ben, our new salesman, was standing there with his mouth open. I think I'll work from home for the rest of the day. Can you help him up? It was 2 days before I returned. He had a concussion and looked like he had been in a fight with 2 black eyes. After that, we only communicated by email. The punch shocked me. My mom was right. I needed to talk to someone. Kathy Grimes was one of the best therapists I could find. It took 2 weeks for her to have an opening for me. She was about my age, very professional, and had a warm, friendly style. From the pictures on her wall, she seemed happily married with 2 kids who looked around 10 years old. Nice kids, I said, looking at the pictures. She smiled. Thanks. Do you have any? No, I sighed. I don't think that will ever be my path. Oh, in this line of work, I've learned to never say never. You're still young and there's plenty of time. Would you like to sit at the table or in a chair? Her office felt like a cozy living room. There was a plain wooden table in one corner, like ones you'd find in kitchens all over. The chairs were comfy, with cushions. Table. Good choice, she said with a smile. I find it's more relaxing. She brought a pitcher of water, a coffee pot, and a plate of cookies to the table before sitting down. Homemade, oatmeal raisin, from a secret family recipe that's just on the oatmeal box. Would you like water or coffee? After she poured the water, she got right to the point. First, can you tell me why you wanted to meet and what you aim to achieve from our sessions? I appreciated her directness. I'm going through a stressful time in my life, and it's causing me anger problems. I want to learn how to manage that anger. I'm tired of feeling this way. I don't even like who I've become. That's a clear start. Now the big questions. What is making you so angry? Can it be fixed? Do you want to fix it, or do you wish to move on? For the next 90 minutes, I shared my story, my past, the time I spent in a relationship, my marriage, and the pain that followed. I spoke about how much I loved her and how deeply I felt hurt. She listened attentively, jotting down notes and asking questions now and then. When I finished, the session was over. You've given me a lot to think about. I'll review our conversation before we meet next week. Same time next week, okay? If you ever feel overwhelmed with anger, call me and I will do my best to fit you in. Would you like me to suggest something to help you feel calmer? Thanks, but no. See you next week. I had been going for a month and was starting to feel better when she asked if she could share some thoughts. You're a good person, Jace. in a difficult situation. You've been hurt badly, and the sense of betrayal is huge. That's why you react so strongly when your wife's name comes up. I see this kind of thing often, and your level of betrayal is like nothing I've encountered before. It's consuming you, and you might not fully understand it. My take is, you still have feelings for your wife. She raised her hand before I could reply. That doesn't mean you want to be back together. The fact that your friends have either supported her or ignored what happened only makes things worse. When they tell you to just move on and forgive, it only keeps the pain fresh. In the end, you need to ask yourself if you would be happier with her or without her. I thought for a moment. It's tough either way. She has let me down before. If I take her back, even with promises, she might think I would forgive her again if she makes the same mistakes. I can't risk that. I couldn't handle going through it again. I paused and she gave me the space to think. So I guess that's it for us. I still have feelings for her, but love isn't the main issue. Trust is what's really broken. I don't see a way to trust her again, and that says it all. And about our so-called friends? I understand why some would hesitate to talk to me. It can be an awkward situation, but those who helped her, the ones who defended her and kept her secrets, they are no longer important to me. Looking back, I realized they were mostly her friends anyway. You probably know that I've always been more of a loner. I enjoy being around people, but I don't need to be with them all the time. I heard a song that said, "Being alone doesn't mean I'm lonely. That's how I feel." She nodded in agreement. I understand what you're going through. In my opinion, you should move forward with the divorce. But it's really important that you talk to her. If you don't, she'll keep hoping to win you back. You need to explain why that won't happen. If she can see that, she might stop fighting the divorce. You've mentioned your struggles with counseling, but you seem ready to consider it now, especially if it helps you get what you want faster. I can arrange a few sessions with both of you if you'd like. I can help keep things fair. It's entirely up to you, but that's my advice. I thought for a bit. I was exhausted. It needed to end. Perhaps if I went to counseling with her instead of resisting, she would finally get it and we could both move on. Do you think she'll agree? She nodded again. I'm almost sure she will. She will likely see it as a chance to share her side and convince you to come back. But I should warn you, it might be tough. I told her to go ahead and set it up. I've been hurting since it all started. A little more won't break me. The hardest part was knowing she still loved me deeply. I realized this because I listened to her phone calls for a few weeks before I let Johnny disconnect the taps. In the first days after our split, she called me often. Even the messages I didn't listen to were hard to ignore. Most of her messages were filled with tears, asking me to talk and let her explain. After about 50 calls, it boiled down to one simple plea. Please talk to me, Jace. The chats she had with her friends were quite revealing, especially with Cindy. Oh man, we really messed up, didn't we? Yes, we did. I don't know what I was thinking, Cindy. What was I even doing? She laughed a little. You did it because it seemed exciting. You really thought you could have both sides without anyone finding out. I never thought he would either. I'm sorry Alan found out, but I knew he'd keep it quiet. He needs you too much. Honestly, we all need you. Did you hear he wants out of the partnership? He thinks if we acted like this in our personal lives, what are we doing in business? We need to reach out to him and win him back. We've got to fix this, Beck. The question is how. I see a lot of groveling ahead for us. Becky was quietly crying. I doubt anything can fix this mess, Sin. He's really angry. He left me a file full of proof with pictures and interviews. You'd be surprised how many were ready to turn against me. I can't believe how careless we were. Some of her friends were no better. Most discussed plans to get me in the same room with her, even mentioning extreme ideas. Many promised to talk to me. Their reports back to Becky were entertaining, though one friend was pretty blunt with her. I'm done. He almost lost his temper, and the unfortunate truth is that we had it coming. He asked my husband if I was okay with you having a secret and actually helping to cover it up. What was I doing when he wasn't around? I'm still trying to keep things smooth, but Jack is really angry. I'm pretty sure you're in big trouble, Beck. I know we are. I wouldn't ask any more from us to confront him. Sorry about that. The guy actually called her 3 times. She hung up on him the first time, but the next 2 calls, just before I turned off the water, were very revealing. Don't hang up, Becky. We're in serious trouble here. We need to talk. Our jobs are on the line. You think I care about the job, Greg? The worst decision I ever made was working for you. I could sense the annoyance in his voice. Get off your high horse. You practically begged for this job. It was my idea to have a secret, but you didn't hesitate once it was mentioned. Speaking of that, want to meet up? He's not coming back and you know it. The look in his eyes that night scared me. We could comfort each other, and he'd never know. She burst out. That's what we thought the first time, remember? How did that go? And if he's angry now, what do you think he'd do if he found out? No means no, Greg, not again. Calm down. It was just a suggestion. I have to face the board next week. Word about our little mistake has reached them. You'll probably get a call, too. We need to figure out how to handle this. She actually laughed. Handle this? If they ask, I'm going to tell them the truth. We had a secret. We both share the blame. I will tell them it's over, and I'll never do it again if they let me stay. I really doubt they will. He tried again. They'll let me go, Becky, whether they do it to you or not. This is the only kind of work I have ever done. If I get fired and people find out why, I might never work in this field again. She lowered her tone a bit. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. We both messed up. But I have to tell the truth. If I don't and Jace finds out, I will really be in trouble. I actually care about you, Greg. But you aren't worth my marriage. Well, she seemed genuine. I called their direct boss and set up a meeting. He came with his lawyer, clearly worried I would sue them. That kind of attention in this economy would hurt their fundraising efforts. I also knew they had a very strict code of conduct, which was essential for their company. They could lose contracts and struggle to attract new charities. Until now, they had a very good record. I played the recording for them. Before you speak, I need to tell you that this tape was obtained legally. If needed, I will make it part of the public record in my divorce. I let them squirm for a moment before I shared my terms. I will not take legal action for certain considerations. First, my wife will never know about this meeting. Second, talk to her, give her a warning, change her position, do whatever you think is best, but please do not fire her. I need her to keep her job during the divorce. Deal with the other person how you see fit, but I think this isn't the first time something like this has happened. What if it had been someone important or their family? In my view, he seems like trouble waiting to happen. That's just my opinion. You can handle it however you choose. Agreed? Good. Of course, we can't draw up a report about this, but I have recorded our conversation. I took out the recorder and handed over the tape. I didn't mention that I had another recorder still running. If I give you any trouble, you can play this tape. And one more thing. There is a volunteer, Cindy Waller. She helped my wife and kept things quiet for her. It might be better if she is no longer part of your team. They nodded in agreement, like bobbleheads. She got moved to a lower position and put on probation, but she kept her job. Cindy was upset when they told her it might be better for her to find another place to volunteer, but she understood. I feel like Jace is behind this, she complained to Becky. What if he is? So what? I think Alan would agree if he were honest. You are judged by who you spend time with, Sin, and right now, I'm not in a good place. They allowed Greg to resign without giving him a letter of recommendation. I have no idea where he went, but he called Becky to say goodbye. They let me go. It was polite, but I'm out, with no good word from them. I guess this is goodbye. She sounded sympathetic. I'm sorry, Greg, but we brought this on ourselves. At least you aren't married. There was a brief silence. Actually, Beck, I am. My wife is serving in a difficult place right now. She'll be back home in 3 months. You shouldn't have done that to her. At least Jace is safe at home. I know. I messed up. I was lonely and you were there. I feel bad about everything. You aren't going to tell her, are you? No. I have no way to reach her, but even if I could, she doesn't deserve what I'm feeling. Love her when she returns and don't make this mistake again. I promise. I'm really sorry for how everything turned out. I hope you can move on. You're an amazing woman, Becky. Goodbye. She cried into the phone for a moment before hanging up. I thought about reaching out to his wife, but ultimately decided against it. She probably needed to know, but knowing his nature, she would find out the truth soon enough. Kathy got in touch with Becky, and she was eager to chat with me. Following Kathy's advice, Becky went to 3 sessions by herself first. I think Kathy was trying to prepare her, but she was too stubborn to acknowledge it. Finally, the big night came, the first session. I figured she might try to confront me, so I arrived 30 minutes early. Becky was surprised when Kathy brought her from the waiting room to find me already there. "Jace!" she exclaimed, reaching out to hug me. Kathy stood between us. "Becky, for this to work, you need to give him space. He's made it clear he doesn't want any physical contact. If you don't follow what I've said, he might leave, and he may not return. Do you understand?" Becky took a moment, but then she composed herself and sat at the table. "Becky, listen. I know you have things to say, and so does Jace. Just remember to stay calm, be clear, and avoid overreacting. Would you like to go first?" She nodded, and we waited. "First, I need to say I'm sorry, Jace. I know what I did was wrong, and you have every right to be upset. I have no excuse, and I'm not even sure why I acted that way. Was it worth all the pain I caused? Absolutely not. I won't be foolish again. But Kathy has told me that being sorry doesn't change anything if you can't forgive me. I messed up and hurt our marriage. Now I need to show you I deserve another chance. Will you promise to talk to me? If after these meetings you still can't forgive me, I'll go quietly and won't fight the divorce." I looked at her and then at Kathy. I could sense Kathy's influence in all this. Maybe the individual sessions had really helped. I spoke, noticing that she was waiting for my response. "I know that was hard for you, Becky. I've been thinking about it a lot over these last few days. We've known 5 couples who have gone through similar issues, and they tried counseling to save their marriages. Only one couple made it, Gary and Sherry. But even now, they don't show affection in public like they used to. It's been 2 years, and things are still not the same. Could you live like that? Always wondering if I'd be watching you if you needed to go out? Checking everything you said? I couldn't do that." She winced at my words but kept a determined expression. "If I could hold you every night, I could manage. I would do everything to show you I have changed, and I want to win your trust back." I raised my hands in frustration. "Trust? How would you earn that back? You went out with others when we were dating and didn't tell me. I should have seen that coming. Now, after all this time together, thinking about a family and our future, you've done it again. Did you feel lonely again? Were you bored while I was busy trying to build a better future for us?" Finally, I felt some of the weight lift off me. Becky looked shocked at my words. Kathy spoke up. "Our time is up. I need you to do some homework for me before our next meeting. Becky, I want you to think about what Jace said. Tell him how you plan to earn his trust. Jace, I need you to think about this too. Can you move past your anger and try to rebuild your relationship with Becky? Please be honest. That's all until next week. Jace, could I speak with you for a moment before you go?" "Good night, Becky." We watched as she got into her car and sat there for a while before driving away. Kathy turned to me. "You're really not taking her back, are you?" "No," I said, feeling down. She sighed. "I figured as much. We need to change the focus of our sessions. We have to help her understand and accept things slowly. If you still care for her, be gentle when you tell her." Gentle didn't work. Kathy and I tried, but she just wouldn't let go. I tried every approach I could think of, including some ideas from Kathy, but nothing seemed to make a difference. Eventually, I decided to end it. "You broke an important promise, Beck. It seems so easy for you. I know you regret what happened, but I feel you don't fully grasp its seriousness. While I see it as a life-changing event, you seem to view it as just a mistake, like spending too much money or damaging a car. Didn't you feel anything when it happened?" As usual, she didn't answer directly. "Talk about feelings. You seem so cold. Give me one more chance, please. How can you sit there without feeling anything while I'm hurting? You still don't understand, do you? There's a lot going on inside me. It's our emotions that make us human. All animals have thoughts, but only humans truly feel love, hate, and desire. I've just learned to control my feelings better." I let her talk for another half hour before I raised my hand and stood up. "It's over, Beck. Accept it and move on. Know that I still care for you, but it's not enough anymore. The divorce will be final in 4 weeks. It's for the best for both of us. You're still a young and wonderful woman. You'll meet someone else. When you do, if you ever feel tempted, remember us. He deserves your best." I walked out, my heart aching again as I heard her cry. 2 days later, Kathy called me. I just wrapped up a session with Becky. I can't share details, but she still believes she can win you back. Be careful. I know she will come around, and I'm concerned. I'm really sorry things ended this way. I think you should keep seeing me for a little while. Should we set up a meeting? I thought about it. Not right now. I'll call you in a month or so. Thanks for everything, Kathy. Kathy was right. Becky had one last effort before she gave up. I'd always liked her family, except for her oldest brother. He was a police officer and a bit of a bully. We tolerated each other, but just barely. He often pulled me over just to bother me and insist I forgive his sister. I spoke with Paul, who asked me to note the next 4 stops. The commander found himself explaining his concerns about me to the assistant chief. When the stops were made, it did not improve his opinion of me. It was 2 weeks before the final hearing. The sun shone brightly, spring felt alive, and I was starting to feel happy again after a long time. That Saturday morning, my Yamaha was running smoothly when I saw the lights flashing behind me. I pulled over. I was reaching for my license, not paying attention to the officer, when he suddenly had me in handcuffs and placed in the back of his car. When he stopped at a nearby park, he dragged me out as I complained and attached my handcuffs to a bench. He then took off the cuffs and connected Becky to me. "You will listen now. I'll be back in 45 minutes. Make sure to smile," he said. Becky was upset and tried to comfort me, apologizing for the situation. "Can we talk now?" she asked gently. I looked into her eyes, searching for the woman I had married, but she didn't seem to be there. "Like I have a choice," I replied with a small smile. "Just give me my phone. Someone is expecting me, and then I'm ready to listen." She took my phone out and handed it to me. I called 911. 911, what is your emergency?" the operator asked. "This is J.C. Gooding. I'm at Armstrong Park on the bench near the gazebo. I've been taken and handcuffed to the bench with another person. I repeat, I've been kidnapped." Becky looked shocked, trying to grab the phone from me while shouting. Several people in the park started coming over to see what was happening. "Sir, a car is on the way. Do you know who took you?" the operator asked. "Shift Commander Jeff Sterling. I'm handcuffed to his sister. Please help." The nearby police car arrived in less than 2 minutes. Becky was still yelling as he tried to get the cuffs off. Then her brother rushed over, sliding across the grass and startling the onlookers. "I'll handle this," he said to the officer. The officer hesitated, looking at me. "If you leave me with him, it makes you part of this problem. You could face serious consequences. Call someone else for help." He made the call, and soon 6 police cars surrounded us. No one was arrested as they continued their investigation, and I was allowed to go back to my motorcycle. Things escalated the next day. The officer had everything recorded on his dash cam. It showed me pulling over, him using the taser and cuffs, right up to when he put me into the car. I could have pressed charges for several offenses. Becky would have faced charges too. Paul was with me when we met with the district attorney to discuss what happened. "My client is willing to make this simple for everyone. He won't press charges if the officer faces internal discipline, and his wife agrees to stay away from their final divorce hearing. It was their choice, but if they didn't accept the offer, I would pursue them with great determination, do you understand? They didn't have much choice. Their parents didn't want to see 2 of their 3 kids in trouble, so they took the deal. Her brother didn't escape without consequences. He faced setbacks at work, had to take the night shift, and was warned about his behavior. His chances for getting a better job were very slim. He couldn't leave because other companies wouldn't hire him. Finally, it was all over. I returned to my business and met a cheerful young woman who appreciated my kindness. She made me believe there was still good in the world, but I actually lost my friends, my business, and my partner. It took a long time before I felt ready to look at anyone else. My business struggled because everyone was aware of our problems and stopped giving us contracts. Fortunately, Ada received a job offer she deserved and took her trainee with her. Ben left not long after. The next month, when I entered the office, I found a note on the door. "You win. Alan found another job and the paperwork is on your desk. Sign it and the company will be officially closed." Cindy had written the note, although she hadn't signed it. There was still a little money left, and after I got my share from selling the house, I was doing all right. I could take a year off if I wanted. Instead, I took 2 months, hopped on my motorcycle, and went exploring. I ended up 3 states away, in a beautiful city surrounded by mountains, where people were friendly and life felt easy. It was as if I had stepped into a simpler time, because everyone seemed so relaxed. I stayed there for 3 days, visiting attractions and gathering information. I checked out a few more towns, but none felt quite like that one, so I returned, booked a room for a week, and looked for a house. I saw some condos and apartments, but I really wanted a house with a nice yard. I found what I was looking for on my 3rd visit, a small cottage with 2 bedrooms, a large yard, and a stream at the back. It was quite a distance from the closest neighbor. I signed a lease for a year with the option to buy. Next, I searched for a job and found one at a small company that worked with growing businesses. They assigned me some smaller projects to test my skills. After 6 months, my boss wanted to talk. Jace, I had to tell him, was not short for Jason. My real name is John Charles. I was called JC until my sister changed it when she was little. She called me JC, which got shortened to Jace, and I had stopped trying to change it a long time ago. In his thoughtful Southern way, whenever the conversation was serious, he used both my names. John Charles, you have been doing excellent work. So good that I wondered why you were here. I checked your resume and everything you mentioned was accurate. I have a feeling you won't stay with us long, so I'm going to make good use of your time. I'm giving you a new project. A friend of mine owns a successful winery and wants to grow his business nationally. Go meet him, set up some meetings, and start brainstorming. This could benefit all of us. If I succeed, I want you on board. I felt pleased that he thought so highly of me. The vintner was a local who had spent 6 years in Italy learning about winemaking. He returned home to help his aging parents and took over their farm, using the north-facing slopes to grow vines he imported from Italy. He started small, gradually expanding his operation, and now leased 3 additional farms, doubling his land. He had won several awards for his sweet wines and aimed to enter the national market. He had already secured a distributor, but needed a marketing campaign to promote his product. I visited the winery for an anonymous wine tasting. Most of the wines were quite good, while a few weren't to my taste. Eventually, I introduced myself and asked for Mr. Edwards. He came in quickly, dressed for work on the farm. We shook hands, and he asked why I hadn't set an appointment. I wanted to taste your wines, see how you operate, and brainstorm some ideas. I didn't expect you to drop everything for me, but I wanted you to know I stopped by to chat and make an appointment in person. What do you think of my wines? He asked, looking a bit anxious. I liked most of them, but I'm no expert. I enjoyed them so much that I bought a mixed case to take home. While we spoke, an idea started forming in my mind. I couldn't wait to get back and develop it. However, Jack, he insisted on first names, had me follow him around for a while. He explained everything about the winery and the origins of the vines. I ended up spending 3 hours with him. In my free time, I explored the area, enjoying the winding mountain roads. I had some work done on my motorcycle that increased its power, and it could go fast when I pushed it. I also bought a well-used but reliable 4-wheel drive truck since winters could get quite snowy. I kept my car, a Dodge Dart, which was perfect for a single person. I chose the sportiest model, and while it was said to reach over 180 miles per hour, I never pushed it past 110, and that only twice. The car and motorcycle were stored in the garage while the truck was parked outside. One Saturday afternoon, I found a little bar in an out-of-the-way place. There were a few motorcycles outside, mostly Harleys, but also a Goldwing and a few sport bikes, so I decided to stop in for a drink. The atmosphere quieted for a moment when I entered. They could tell I wasn't from around here. I ordered my drink and looked around. The place was old but clean and tidy. The regulars at the bar seemed to know each other well, sharing jokes and playful teasing. After serving drinks, the bartender spoke up. "This place has been in my family for 70 years, he said proudly. "We have a good reputation here. No fights, and everyone respects each other, especially women. If you don't, you're out quick." I appreciated his words. A friendly spot is valuable, no matter if folks come in business suits or casual clothes. People are pretty much the same, no matter their income. He liked my compliment and offered me the next round. Then a big guy with a beard sat down beside me. "Is that yours?" he asked, glancing at my bike outside. "Yep," I replied. He chuckled. "Another one of those bikes. They don't sell real ones made in America where you're from? His grin softened the comment. Which one do you have? I asked. He pointed to an older Harley. Nice bike, I said, returning his smile. But the parts on that one are from all over, too. Some from Italy and Japan and tires from a British company. Still think it's all American? He looked surprised. Really? I nodded. Really? They're nice bikes, though. Soon others joined our conversation. One guy mentioned his Vulcan was made in the U.S. We ended up stepping outside to look at all the bikes together. By the time we returned inside, I had made some new friends. After that, I spent most weekends at the bar, joining poker runs and riding together whenever we felt like it. They took me to many places I would never have discovered on my own. 3 months later, I got my nickname. I had met with Jack Edwards about a campaign idea. I wanted to see if I could film a commercial in his tasting room. The tasting room was beautiful, with wood, stone, and glass, featuring a high ceiling and lots of natural light. He liked my idea, as long as we filmed on a Monday, which was his slowest day. He even gave me a case of wine to try and share my thoughts. Many of his wines had names inspired by the area. Millrace Red came from the old mill near his land, and Yankee Orchard White was named after a friend's apple orchard. Jack, originally from New York, created unique wines. One wine, using Pink Lady apples blended with a medium white, was smooth and had a fresh, fruity taste. After a long day, I needed to relax. My route home took me right past the bar. Forgetting my appearance, I walked in. For a moment, there was silence. Then laughter erupted. "Where have you been? A funeral?" chuckled Fat Bob, the first person I had met when I started coming here. We had become good friends. Sometimes I even lent him my truck when his bike needed repairs. I was about to explain when I heard another voice. "Who's the guy in the suit?" I didn't need to look. Amanda Patterson, known around the bar as Baby Doll, had just turned 20 and stood barely 5 feet tall. She was cute, with red hair and a quick temper, and she spoke her mind. People generally didn't flirt with her unless she was interested, and I had never seen her show that interest. "Hi, Amanda. I dressed up to ask for your hand in marriage." I got down on one knee, and the bar erupted in laughter. Her face turned bright red, and I knew her feelings about love and marriage were strong. There had to be some story behind that. She also disliked being called Amanda. "That's not funny, and what are you all laughing at? Don't make me come over there." This only made them laugh more. "I won't take that as a no. Does that mean I need to keep wearing this suit until you decide to say yes?" She pushed me back and stormed off to the kitchen. Fat Bob helped me up. I wouldn't order anything tonight. She might not be in the best mood to serve. Amanda worked in the kitchen on weekends for tips and meals. I learned from Ellen, one of the bartenders, that she had a tough life. During the week, she stayed in a shelter and slept on a cot at the bar over the weekends. It wasn't exactly right, but no one was going to report her. "She's a good kid, just having a hard time. We'd hire her full-time if we could." I asked how she managed to get by during the week without a job. "Soup kitchens, I guess. I never asked. I think she has some background issues and hasn't finished high school, so her job options are really limited." Amanda was there nearly every night, leaving only when she needed to secure a place to sleep. I'm not sure why I decided to help her. Maybe I wanted to connect with someone. Maybe I wanted to give her some hope. I made a deal with Helen and Sam, the owner. I offered to pay for her meals during the week. Sam agreed to let her work 4 hours a night waiting tables and cleaning for $100 a week, and I would cover half of that. I just asked that she never find out I was involved. "Here," I said, giving Ellen $200. "Take her shopping. She needs new clothes. Tell her she can pay you back from her wages, $20 a week." Ellen later told me it was the first time she had seen Amanda cry. She didn't buy much, just some new clothes, including 3 pairs of jeans and a few plain shirts. 2 pairs of sneakers rounded out her purchases, and that was all she needed. I thought about everything as Ellen shared Amanda's story with me. Becky often bought shoes she didn't really like, wore them a few times, then got rid of them. She probably spent more on makeup and accessories in a month than Amanda earned in that time. She stayed in the kitchen for the rest of the night. Later, Helen mentioned she might have cried a bit, saying it was because of cutting onions. I felt bad and hoped I hadn't hurt her feelings too much. Soon I got the nickname Suit, which everyone found amusing. I made a point to stop by wearing my work clothes now and then. Every time I did, I would ask her if she had changed her mind. She still teased me every time, but now she smiled. Everyone at the bar was kind to her. I had never really thought about how she felt until one night when a new guy was flirting with her. She managed to deflect him with a smile, but he kept bothering her. When she leaned over at the next table to pick up some empty glasses, he touched her inappropriately. I noticed and rushed over without thinking. She screamed, turned around, and accidentally spilled her drink on him. "Watch it!" he shouted angrily, getting ready to hit her. I grabbed his arm and pulled him away from her. Sam and Fat Boy arrived just in time to stop me from retaliating. Amanda reacted by hitting him hard as we moved him aside. "Don't ever touch me again. Next time my fiancé will protect me." She blushed when she realized what she said and hurried into the kitchen. Later, she came out to thank me for stepping in. I smiled. I couldn't let my future bride get hurt, could I? Just a tip. It might be good to let the guys who bother you know someone cares about you. Think about it. To everyone's surprise, she kissed my cheek. Once the cheers died down, she warned them not to laugh at her again. She then quickly went back to the kitchen. 3 weeks later, I signed up for a poker run. We met at the bar and they opened the kitchen for breakfast. After eating, as we lined up, I felt someone tugging at my sleeve. Baby doll looked a bit embarrassed but determined. "Can I ride with you?" "Sure, if you have a helmet." She showed me one. Fat Boy lent it to me. She was in jeans and a t-shirt, and I knew it would be cool in the morning. "Go get a jacket. It'll be cold if you don't." She lowered her head. "I don't have one. I haven't needed it before." I sighed as she climbed on behind me. "Have you ever been on a bike before?" I asked. She nodded. "Then you know you need to hold on. It won't be safe unless you do." Everyone knew she didn't like being touched, but she slowly wrapped her arms around my waist. I started off slowly until she began to relax. After a mile, I pulled into a Walmart. "Why are we stopping here?" she asked. "To get you a jacket. I can feel you shivering. If you want, you can pay me back later. Or you can just accept it as a gift for coming along. Either way, we're not leaving until you're bundled up." She complained a bit, but I managed to get her a warm jacket, scarf, and gloves. The gloves earned me more grumbling. "If you keep this up, I'll just leave you here," I teased. "I don't want you catching a cold. Now how about a thank you?" She smirked. "Thanks, genius. If you want to waste your money, go ahead. Can we catch up with everyone now?" We met up with the others at the next stop. By then, she was holding on tightly as we rode. Lunch was a stop at a nice buffet-style restaurant, but she looked like she'd wait outside by the bike. I leaned close and told her, "Get inside right now. If you don't, I'll carry you in." She gave me a look but followed, and once inside, she didn't hold back from enjoying the food. At the end of the day, we relaxed, and to our surprise, we won a small prize, a gift certificate for a motorcycle shop. I handed it to her, covering her mouth lightly when she started to object. When I let go, she stayed quiet, though her eyes were fiery. The ride back didn't go as smoothly. It started to drizzle, then rain harder. We were almost at my place just a mile away, so I turned toward my garage. Once we were parked, she got off the bike, threw the coat, gloves, and scarf on the floor, and stormed off. She looked upset and had clearly misunderstood. "You think just because you bought me a few things that means something more?" she shouted angrily, turning away. It took me a moment to calm down. I hopped in my car and drove after her. I spotted her walking fast in the rain, already soaked. I pulled over just ahead of her. "Get in the car, Amanda." "Leave me alone," she said, trying to walk past. I gently held her arm. "You can either get in the car and I'll take you back to the bar, or keep refusing, and I'll put you in the car myself. Your choice." She kept walking, but I guided her carefully to the car and opened the passenger door. After a moment, she slid in without any more argument. We had driven a mile in silence when she finally started to talk. I raised my hand. "Don't say a word, or I'll stop the car right here and leave you behind. Got it?" She nodded, eyes wide. I turned into a parking lot, opened her door, and said, "Get out, now." She got out, and I closed the door hard. I drove onto the highway, speeding away. I waited 3 weeks before I went back, making sure she was gone first. I handed Helen a coat, scarf, and gloves. "These are for Amanda. She can use them or toss them. I really don't care." Helen and Sam looked surprised. Then Helen smiled and slapped my shoulder. What was that for? I said, rubbing my arm. That's for making us listen to her for 3 weeks. We didn't know what happened when you left. Then Amanda came in, went straight to the back and cried for 3 days. Her life hasn't been easy. She was mistreated and left behind when she was 15. She stayed in foster care until she turned 18 and was on her own. She got involved with someone who wasn't good for her. Take it easy on her, Suit. She doesn't know how to deal with kindness. It's new for her. She thinks if someone is nice, they want something from her, something she's not comfortable giving. Helen smiled again. She rushes to the door every time she hears a motorcycle, hoping it's you. She wouldn't admit it, but she has a big crush on you. It's gone from being angry to feeling sad. Be nice to her. Show up while she's around and say something kind before she loses her cool. I went to the bar the next night, driving my Dart and wearing a nice suit. Amanda, come out here! She peeked out from the kitchen looking scared. Come on, baby doll. I just want to chat. She stepped out ready to run. I had already spoken with Sam and Helen about my plan. Sam, tell her she's fired. Her face went white and Helen laughed. It's just for tonight, sweetie. You still have your job. That's right. You're still employed, just not tonight. We're going out. First, I'll take you somewhere that has good food. Hey, Sam and Helen said together, both laughing. Let me rephrase that. Somewhere that serves more than just burgers and fries. Afterward, we can watch a movie, maybe one of those emotional ones girls like. Get ready while I enjoy a drink. People laughed, and Amanda turned red. She started rubbing her jeans nervously. Jace, I'm not dressed for this. 10 minutes, Amanda, or we go back to what happened that rainy night, understood? She gasped and dashed into the back room. I turned to Helen. Go help her with some makeup to help her feel better. It's just dinner and a movie. She surprised everyone by giving me a big kiss. Maybe for you. They all cheered when she came out, her cheeks shining. Helen had helped her with her hair and put a little lipstick on. She looked amazing. I took her hand, opened the door for her, and the group smiled as I helped her into the car. I could hear quiet applause as I drove away. Is there a special place you'd like to eat? I asked while driving a bit fast. She hadn't said much. Anywhere is fine, she replied, looking out the window. I parked in an office lot. Look at me, Amanda. She turned to face me. When I ask you something, I really want an honest answer. So again, where do you want to eat? Would you like to try something new? Italian, Thai, anything? She looked down and, in a quiet voice, said, I've always wanted to try lobster, but you don't have to spend too much. So I took her to Red Lobster and ordered her a plate with lobster in different styles. She was shy at first, but got more comfortable as she ate. She even tried to get me to have a bite once. Sorry, Amanda, but I don't like lobster. Then why did we come here? She asked, looking confused. Because you wanted to try lobster, plus I enjoyed the shrimp. That made her smile, and she eagerly sampled my shrimp when I offered. After dinner, we went to the movies. There were 8 options, and I let her choose. I didn't think she liked horror films, but apparently the scarier the better for her. After the movie, we went to an ice cream shop and she got a big banana split with 2 spoons. For someone small, she sure had a big appetite. Everything was going well until we passed a bank with a sign showing the time and temperature. Oh no. Oh no what, Amanda? Oh no, I've stayed out too late to go back to the shelter. I guess I'll need to return to the bar. Okay, I said, driving her straight to my house. She sat quietly as I turned off the car and closed the garage door. Amanda, listen closely. I have 2 bedrooms. One can be yours for the night and it has a lock. You can sleep in a nice bed, take a refreshing shower, and I'll even make breakfast for you. No strings attached, nothing expected. It's your choice. I'm going inside now. If you don't trust me, lock the doors and lean back in the seat. I'll wake you up in the morning. It took about 30 minutes for her to come inside. Where's the bedroom? She asked. I showed her the room, pointed out where the towels were, gave her a shirt to sleep in, and then headed to bed, laughing quietly as I locked my own door. She must have slept soundly, because I had showered, gotten dressed, and made breakfast before I knocked on her door. Time to wake up, sleepyhead. Breakfast is ready. I poured coffee, served a ham and cheese omelet, and placed the toast on the table. I had almost given up when she stumbled into the kitchen, still wearing my t-shirt. It was so big on her that it hung down to her knees. She was slow to wake up, but that didn't stop her from eating. She finished her plate, and we piled the dishes into the sink. I picked up my travel mug. "Where do you want me to drop you off?" I asked. She looked surprised. "I don't know. I usually wait at the library until it's time for work, but it's closed for another 2 hours. I guess you can take me to the park." I didn't like that idea. I knew some people stayed in the park, and I didn't want her there, especially this early. "How about this? Stay here. I'll take the truck to work and meet you after. You can take the dart to the bar. If you scratch it, you'd better run, okay?" Her eyes widened. "You really trust me that much?" I smiled. "You planning to take anything from me?" She turned bright red. I spoke quickly to avoid any misunderstanding. "I didn't think so. By the way, I need to get the oil changed. Could you drive it to the Dodge dealership for me? It's already paid for, so no need to worry about that. I'll call when they open. Will you do it if they can fit me in?" She just nodded her head. I surprised her by giving her a quick kiss on the cheek and stepped back before she could respond. "Thanks. Make yourself at home. I'll see you later." She was still rubbing her cheek as I left. Everyone at work noticed I was in a good mood. A secretary jokingly asked if I had a good night. She had tried to get my attention when I first started, but I hadn't been interested. She was a little older than me, in her 30s. I finished pouring my coffee and turned to her. "Actually, I spent the night with a great girl who's nearly 10 years younger than I am. Remember that energy from back then? I'm lucky I can walk today," I said with a grin. I left her speechless, while the others laughed. She did take the truck for the oil change. When I came home to change, I was surprised at how clean everything was. It looked amazing. She must have spent a lot of time cleaning. I had called my friend Fat Boy, and he came by to take me back to my car. He was smiling widely. "What's up?" I asked. "You and her, huh? Is she as great as she seems?" he teased. I just smiled back. "You're quite the character, you know that? All she had last night was a bed alone." "If you say so," he replied, still smiling. I wasn't ready for what happened when we arrived. She ran up to me, jumped into my arms, and gave me a big kiss. I felt a strong thrill, and it made me look down, wondering if my shoes were okay. The bar was loud with laughter. "Be quiet," she shouted. "This is how you greet a man." I was taken aback by her energy. She wanted to be close to me all night, so much that Sam warned her that she might lose her job if she didn't focus. When I got ready to leave, she asked me to stay longer and drive her back to the shelter. I couldn't say no. I warmed up the car and waited. She came out with a big backpack that I had to put in the trunk. "What's in here?" I asked. "Everything I own," she said as she settled into the passenger seat. "There's nowhere safe to keep it at the shelter. Someone would take it." As I drove, I felt sad thinking about how hard that must be for her. When I missed the turn to the shelter, she spoke up. "If I don't get there soon, I won't have a place to sleep. You're not sleeping there tonight. You can stay at my house. You deserve it for helping me today. Consider it a thank you." She started to argue, but then changed her mind and turned the radio to a station I didn't like, turning up the volume. Instead of going to bed right away, she took a shower, put on one of my t-shirts, and flopped onto the couch, picking up the remote to change the channel. "Hey! I was watching that." "It's boring. Besides, I'm your guest here." She found a show about 4 girls with a secret. I couldn't take it after 5 minutes. "If you're going to watch that, I'm going to bed before I lose my mind." "Good night, Amanda." I could still hear the TV when I nodded off. The next morning, she woke me up, knocking on my door. "Breakfast, sleepyhead," she said, imitating me from the day before. "Eat it while it's hot." She made sausage, home fries, and grits. I was still getting used to those, being from outside the South. I had to admit I was starting to like them. "You don't keep much food around, do you?" she asked as I ate. "I'm a single guy and not home much, so there's no need," I replied, taking a bite of sausage. She picked up the dishes when I was done. "Do you need a ride tonight?" I asked as I walked out the door. "I'm off tonight," she said. "But don't worry about me. I have things to take care of." "Will I see you tonight?" She smiled. "Maybe. Have a good day now." I thought about her throughout the day. She was getting to me. I had dated a little since Becky, but nothing serious. I had casual relationships, enough to keep myself from feeling alone. As I drove home, I thought about my feelings for her. I couldn't decide if I felt pity or if I was truly attracted to her. I considered the reasons for and against starting a relationship with her. She was quite a bit younger than me, and sometimes it felt wrong. She had her struggles and could be loud and frustrating. We seemed to have little in common. Her temper was quick, and she often acted on impulse. But during the rare moments when she relaxed, she was incredibly sweet. She was smart and strong, facing tough times with as much dignity as she could. I thought she would make a wonderful mother, protective and caring. The image of her expecting a child brought a smile to my face. I also thought about how beautiful she was or could be if she dressed differently and learned to use makeup. Her beauty was more than just what you saw on the surface. When I arrived home, I felt a sinking feeling, realizing she was in the shelter. She deserved so much better. As I stepped inside, a delicious smell filled the air. I didn't know what it was, but it made my mouth water. She came out of the kitchen, her hair pulled back and wearing an apron. I was surprised when she stood on her toes to give me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hi, how was work?" she asked, before bursting into laughter at my expression. Then she grew serious. "I made you dinner. It's nothing fancy, but I'm a good cook. It will be ready in 30 minutes. Sit down while I get you a drink. Would you like beer or tea? After dinner, I need to talk to you." I could see she was determined, and I knew whatever she wanted to discuss must be important. "Tea would be fine. Can I help with anything?" I offered. "I got it. Just sit," she replied with a sigh of relief. Dinner turned out amazing. It was roast pork with herb-roasted potatoes, asparagus, and homemade bread. It was probably the best meal I ever had. I ate a lot and felt a bit embarrassed when I realized how much I had eaten. She smiled warmly at me. "I'll take that as a compliment. Are you ready for dessert?" she asked. She had made banana pudding, which I had come to love. I felt so full I could barely move when I finally pushed away from the table. She told me to relax in the living room while she cleaned up. After she finished, she moved a chair in front of the couch, facing me. "Did you enjoy supper? Is everything clean enough for you?" she asked. Honestly, I've never seen the house cleaner, and dinner was fantastic. "How did you learn to cook like this?" I asked. A hint of sadness crossed her face for a moment. My mom wasn't perfect, but she could cook really well. She taught me a lot before her struggles took over. I wanted to comfort her right then, but she shook off her memories and looked directly at me. "I want to make a deal with you, John Charles. I'd like to rent a room from you. I can pay $50 a week, plus I'll cook and clean the house, do the laundry, and even mow the yard. I promise not to get in your way. Please? These last few nights have made me happier than I have been in a long time. I really don't want to go back to the shelter. Please?" She looked at me with hope in her eyes. "No." Her expression changed, looking sad, and soon she started to cry. "I'll get my things. Will you take me to the shelter?" "No, you're not going anywhere until we talk. So sit down, listen, and please don't interrupt. Can you promise me that?" She looked a little scared but hopeful at the same time, and she nodded. "I'm happy to let you stay with me, but there are some conditions. First, you won't have to pay me anything. Instead, you will help by keeping the house clean, doing the grocery shopping, and making meals. Second, I like doing yard work, so I'll take care of that. Third, you will keep your job at the bar. You can use the car for work and other needs. The fourth and most important thing is that you need to go back to school and get your high school diploma, or at least a GED. She sat there, looking surprised. I could tell she felt ashamed about not finishing her education. Maybe this would encourage her to change that. Finally, she nodded. "I'll do it. But will you help me with school? I'll need it." I relaxed and smiled. "I'll do everything I can to help, except actually do the work for you. Do we have a deal?" She jumped into my lap for a brief moment and then quickly got back up when she realized. "Sorry," she said, her face turning bright red. I smiled at her. "I have one more request. You have to give me a goodnight kiss every night and one before I leave for work in the morning. No deal otherwise." She smiled again and held out her hand. "Deal." We shook hands and started a new, exciting chapter of our lives. The next morning I asked her where the food had come from. She showed me the receipts. I paid her back and then gave her my debit card, telling her to buy food and anything else we might need. I couldn't stop smiling all the way to work, still feeling the warmth of the goodbye kiss. Nothing could wipe the smile off my face that day. Gail was in a bad mood again. It seemed like my happiness bothered her. "Did you see that girl last night?" she asked. "Yes, I did. She moved in last night. You should find someone too, Gail. It might help you feel better." The look she gave me as I left was not friendly at all. The guys at the bar teasingly gave me a hard time, but they were smiling. Sam shook my hand and Helen gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "You're a good man, Suit. I knew she would get you sooner or later." "We're just roommates, Helen. There's nothing going on." She just smiled wider. "If you say so." When Amanda saw me, she smiled so much I thought her cheeks might hurt. I was about to order a burger when she stopped me. "Your dinner is in the fridge. Just microwave it for 3 minutes. I hope you like it." I had one beer, played a game of pool, and then went home to enjoy a nice meal. She finished work at 9:30 when the kitchen closed and was home by 10. She went straight to the shower. "I smelled bad," she said when she came out wearing a robe and a towel on her head. "What's on TV?" So we settled into a comfortable routine. I took care of the yard and washed the cars while she handled the housework. She cooked most of our meals, but I made sure to take her out to eat or grill for her once a week. On Sundays, if the weather was nice, we would ride our bikes, either alone or with friends. She got a new nickname, Mrs. Suit, which she complained about but smiled while doing it. When her 21st birthday came, I surprised her with a party at a bar. She even received gifts. Soon she was in tears, which was unusual for her. She amazed everyone by hugging them to say thank you. I gave her a day at a spa, which included hair and makeup, plus a gift card for a nice store. "I'd love to see you in something else," I said with a smile, and she blushed. Helen told me it was time to step up and commit to her. "I don't know how she feels about me," I admitted. "Then you're really missing out. She loves you, but she doesn't know how to show it. You need to help her understand. It will be worth it." "How do you know all this?" She hugged Sam when he walked over. "Because 15 years ago I was in her place. Then I met Sam and it took time, but he opened my heart and showed me that there are good men out there. I just hadn't found one until I met him. I was with a rough crowd for 3 years. They treated me badly and I accepted it because I thought I deserved it. They hurt me so much I couldn't have children. He loved me anyway. How could I turn away from that? Our age gap is bigger than yours and Amanda's, but we made it work. Take the next step, Suit. You won't regret it. From what you said, she's nothing like your past." I had shared a little about Becky and me 6 months ago when we had them over for dinner while Amanda ran to the store. She was doing really well in school. With my encouragement, she decided to aim for a full high school diploma instead of a GED. We figured it would take another 2 months for her to graduate. They had graduation ceremonies twice a year to celebrate everyone's achievements. Some of the graduates were in their 60s, but most were like Amanda, kids who had gone off track. I promised her a party for when it happened. I was amazed when she wore my birthday gift. She had on a lovely sundress, bright white, with earrings and a necklace. I had never seen her wear jewelry before, and shoes with 3-inch heels. Her hair was styled beautifully, flowing down her back. She looked so stunning it made my heart swell. "What do you think?" she asked, spinning around. "Did you get your money's worth?" I said the first thing that came to mind. "All they did was make a diamond shine. You've always been this beautiful. The man who wins your heart will be the luckiest person in the world." She stopped spinning around, tears in her eyes, and ran to her room. What had I done now? The following week, she came home from school excited. "What's up?" I asked, happy to see her in a good mood. "I got asked out by a really cute guy. We've been talking for about a month." It felt like a heavy weight dropped in my chest. "Oh," was all I could say, turning away. She quickly reacted. "That's all you have to say?" "Oh." I felt defensive. "What do you want me to say? You seem happy about it, and you've been flirting for a while. Why would I get in the way?" She slammed her door as she went into her room. Sighing, I realized this had been happening a lot lately. I would have to fix the door if she kept this up. I knocked, but she wouldn't answer. Giving up, I got a drink and sank into my thoughts. By my third drink, I found myself wondering about relationships before drifting off. I woke up when she gently shook my shoulder. "What?" I asked, trying to wake up. We need to talk. Her words made me alert. Nothing good seemed to follow that phrase. Do you like me? I couldn't understand her expression. Yes, I do, I replied honestly. How much? I don't know what you mean, Amanda. Can you help me understand? She hit me lightly. As I rubbed my cheek, she began to explain. Are you asking if you love me? Not as a friend, but in a serious way? Because I've loved you for a long time, and I feel like you haven't noticed. I know I'm younger, I don't have much experience, I can be loud and a bit jealous, but that's just part of me. I can't take this anymore. It hurts. If you don't love me, I'll leave. I stopped her by kissing her gently. Whoa now, I said. Are you trying to push me away? Because it's too late for that. What you think you lack doesn't matter. You have something much more important. You have my heart. She seemed to brighten when she heard that. Once she settled, she curled up in my lap, letting her feelings out until she fell asleep. Did we rush into her room and get carried away? No. She needed comfort, so I held her until she felt better, then took her to my bed and tucked her in. I went out onto the back deck, watching the stars and thinking about what might happen next. I was outside for over an hour. When I returned inside, she had put on a shirt and crawled back into bed. When I lay down, she cuddled into my arms, murmured something that sounded like "love you," and dozed off again. I held her for a long time, enjoying her presence before finally falling asleep myself. I woke up alone to the smell of breakfast. She was busy in the kitchen, making everything just right. I surprised her by lifting her off the ground and kissing the back of her neck. She laughed softly, shaking her head. Let me go or breakfast will end up burnt, she teased. After breakfast, with no rush to be anywhere, we settled in for a long talk. She relaxed beside me, then looked thoughtful. Jace, I want you to know I care about you a lot, she said gently. But please be patient with me. I've been through a lot. Slowly, she began to share her past. She had been happy as a child until she lost her dad when she was 10. Afterward, her mother struggled, sinking into depression and making poor decisions. Eventually, she turned to alcohol, and their home life grew chaotic. Things got worse when her mother remarried and had various boyfriends, one of whom tried to harm her. She managed to defend herself and told her school, which led to her being placed in foster care. She spent her teenage years between foster homes and juvenile facilities. Desperate to see her younger sister, she once took a car without permission, landing herself in more trouble. Finally, at 18, she was on her own. She ended up in an unhappy relationship out of necessity. Her partner was controlling, and eventually he tried to push her into making money in harmful ways. She left, eventually finding her way to a new town, hoping for a fresh start. Hearing her story, my heart went out to her. I want to be close to you, Jace, she said, her voice soft. But it's hard for me sometimes. Will you help me? Over time, I supported her however I could, including helping her find a therapist. We grew closer, gradually building trust. Months later, our relationship felt natural and safe, and she seemed more comfortable. One evening, after a light-hearted dinner and some wine, she opened up even more, and we shared a gentle, heartfelt moment together. We took things slowly, respecting each other's boundaries and enjoying the closeness we'd built. The evening was filled with warmth and laughter, and it marked a turning point in our journey together. From then on, our connection grew even stronger, built on trust, understanding, and a shared sense of healing and hope. I could easily get used to this kind of wake-up call. Will you do that fun thing again for a while, then let me drive? She laughed and smiled at me. 5 minutes later, we were enjoying our time together, laughing and playing around. We decided to skip riding our bikes that day since sitting would be too uncomfortable for her. We relaxed for a while until about 3, when I asked her to get dressed. She happily drove if we took the Dart, calling it her car. We went to the mall and I took her into a jewelry store. Choose one, I said, pointing to the engagement rings. Really? She asked, tears starting to fill her eyes. Really, I replied, kneeling down. Marry me. After she happily said yes and calmed down, she tried on almost every ring in the store that I could afford. She finally chose a simple stone and band, not the fanciest, but the one she loved the most. When we entered the bar, everyone celebrated. The women gathered in a group, leaving the men standing. What are they doing? I asked, and the men laughed. They're planning a wedding. Here's the best advice we can give you. Agree to what she wants if you can manage it, and stay out of their way. She wanted a church wedding. We found one close by, but we had to attend services for at least 6 weeks before the big day. This turned out to be a good thing. The pastor was a wise man, and he insisted on a few counseling sessions first. We talked a lot about my past marriage and her experiences too. She looked me in the eye and promised she would never hurt me like that. I believed her. We became members of the church. We didn't go every week, but we visited pretty often. I joked that she used it as an excuse to buy more dresses. She wore dresses all the time, except when she was at work. She wanted to keep her job to earn her own money. The first time you say I don't look good in dresses, I'll stop wearing them, she said with a playful grin. Now she has so many dresses that she rotates them, keeping off-season ones in the other bedroom. I can still close my eyes and picture Amanda walking down the aisle. The ivory lace and silk dress fit her beautifully, enhancing her figure. Her thick hair cascaded down her back, shining in the light. Helen stood in as the mother of the bride. Sam walked her down the aisle. Fat Boy was my best man. Most of my co-workers were there, except for Gail, and many friends from the bar came too. They rode their bikes and escorted our limo to the airport. My mom was there as well. She quickly warmed up to Amanda since she had always wished for a daughter. Amanda took her time to connect, but before we left, she leaned in and said something that made tears spring to her eyes. I asked her about it on the way to the airport. I said, "Thank you, Mom, for sharing your son. I'll return the favor with your grandchildren." That made her smile. Then she shifted my attention by showing me bits of her wedding outfit. We enjoyed our honeymoon in Belize. I wanted to avoid old memories from my first honeymoon in Cancun. I found out this was Amanda's first trip outside the country. In fact, it was her first trip anywhere. We had a great time. We spent lots of time on the beaches. Amanda stayed mostly under the umbrella because the sun was too strong for her fair skin. I loved watching her red hair sparkle in the sunlight. She surprised me by wanting to visit a beach where many people were less covered. Amanda took off her cover-up wearing just a small swimsuit. "Don't be shocked, honey. I wanted to give you a memory. Seeing me like this while others admire me, knowing that I am only yours, should be unforgettable." I had to jump into the water often to distract myself. It was warm, but it didn't really help. Amanda's figure was small but well-shaped, making everything about her look appealing. I noticed other people watching her, even one wife nudging her husband out of surprise. That night we tried to connect deeply. It was intense and we were both exhausted afterward. 6 wonderful months passed. I encouraged her to leave her job at the bar to stay home with me. She wasn't thrilled at first, but she did it. There was a secret smile I recognized on her face. I knew she was up to something. To keep herself busy, she returned to school for a degree in hospitality and food management. I supported her, even if I didn't completely understand her choice. One day she called me at work, sounding anxious. "Honey, you need to come home right now. It's important." I hurried home. She was pacing, looking worried. She rushed into my arms, and I had a sinking feeling. I got concerned when she asked, "Honey, do you love me? Do I even need to answer that?" She relaxed a bit and took my hand. "I need to tell you something and ask you something. Just listen to me first, okay?" She had been searching for her sister for weeks, hoping to connect. Her sister was 12 now, and Amanda hadn't seen her since she was 4. This weighed heavily on her mind because of how good her life was now, in contrast to her past in foster care. First, I found my sister. She doesn't even remember me. That was difficult. She looks a lot like Dad. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm sure she'll warm up to you once she gets to know you. Is she in a good place? Adopted? I'm excited to meet my sister-in-law." I was thrilled knowing how much this meant to her. A tear rolled down her cheek. "No," she said, sadness filling her voice. She wasn't adopted, and she was in a really bad situation when I found her. A place so awful they had to take her and the others away. "Where is she now? You haven't lost her again, have you?" She wrapped her arms around me. "No, she's really close." She took my hand, holding on tightly. "She's in the spare bedroom." Wow. After I gathered my thoughts, I asked Amanda to bring her out. She was only 12, but already taller than Amanda. Her hair was black, and her nose was a bit broader, but aside from that, they looked alike. They had the same mouth, the same graceful neck, and the same expressive hands. Amanda introduced us. I went to give her a hug, but she stepped back, so I offered my hand instead. It's nice to finally meet you, Celeste. Amanda talks about you a lot. Where has she been while I was living in that awful place? Why didn't she come for me sooner? I could have been here years ago. The anger in her voice surprised me. Amanda jumped in. I'm here now, sweetheart. I came for you as soon as I could. 4 years ago, I couldn't take care of myself, let alone an 80-year-old. I had to grow up first. I'm sorry if you're upset. Let's see if we can make it up to you. Celeste was still upset. Oh, that's just great. Now I get to live with the perfect family? Wear fancy dresses and giggle over boys? I know all about boys. They just want one thing, and it's right here. She pointed at herself. As soon as I get out the door, your husband will try to control me. Let's just get this over with. Give me some money and let me go, and I'll be fine for the night. Deal? Amanda looked shocked. I felt anger rise in me. Maybe we'll just give you a warm bed for the night and send you on your way tomorrow. If what you had was better than what we offer, go for it. Actually, I haven't offered you anything yet. Here's the deal. If we talk it over and decide we want you to stay with us, you will speak nicely and behave. My wife is the most important person in my life, and I won't let her be hurt because of your past. She's had her struggles, too. Listen to her story sometime and see if you can understand. Are we clear? She paled and stepped back from me, but soon she found her courage again. I don't need a father figure. I don't need a sister or a mother. I don't need anything from either of you. Understood. I turned to Amanda, pulling her into a hug. She began to cry. I gently stroked her hair. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I know how much you wanted this. It seems it might be too late. It's not your fault, okay? It is not your fault. Maybe one day she'll understand that. I stepped back and looked at both of them. I'm going to start the grill. You two talk and see if you can find some common ground. Celeste, you're here for at least the night. I expect you to be polite. And please stop using bad language. While I set up the grill and cooked, I left the curtain open just in case. I could hear the arguing and see Amanda in tears. It made me very sad. Then Amanda said something that made Celeste cry and they started hugging. Maybe there was hope after all. Dinner was quiet, but there were no big arguments. Celeste ate 2 steaks and 2 big baked potatoes. She even helped Amanda clean up the dishes afterward. When they came back to the living room, they told me they were going out for about an hour to pick up some things. I guessed it was clothes for Celeste. While they were gone, I thought about a society that treated children like they didn't matter. When they returned, Celeste was actually laughing. She even said goodnight to us after showing off her new pajamas with feet. After she fell asleep, Amanda and I talked in bed. Can we keep her, at least for a while? I promise to take care of her. You won't even notice her. I let out a small laugh. I doubt that. Okay, she can stay for now, but she needs to behave. Thank you, darling. I knew I could count on you. The state agreed to give Amanda custody. She was in a stable marriage, lived in a nice area, and had good references from Sam, Helen, and others. Plus, they wouldn't have to pay anything. They were surprised when I asked about her Social Security money. No one had applied for it. I hired a lawyer, and he took care of the paperwork. Once it was done, they had to give all the money she was owed for the past 8 years to us as her guardians. She would also receive $700 each month until she turned 18. We put that money into a college fund. She could use it when she was 18 if she went to school. If she didn't, she would get it all when she turned 21. If she was careful, it would cover almost all of her college expenses. Celeste wasn't as thankful as we hoped. She complained that she should get the money sooner to buy a car. That's almost 4 years away. Let's see what happens between now and then. I took on the role of the strict one to make it easier for Amanda. Celeste really didn't like it, but knew better than to try to make us argue. The first time she tried, she got grounded for a month. She was falling behind in school because she wasn't paying attention. At first, she refused help from me, but Amanda made her accept it by offering rewards for good grades. That helped her start to listen. During this time, I was doing really well at my job. The campaign for the winemaker was a big success and led to better opportunities. My boss was worried I might leave since I had other offers. So, he made me a deal. I could buy into the company and he would match every percent I bought up to 7. Based on current values, I could afford to buy about 1% a year. In 7 years, I could own 14% of the company. Amanda and I talked it over and decided it was a good idea. We both liked it here. Celeste ran away twice. The first time she was missing for several days before they found her at a bus station in another state. Amanda cried the entire time she was away. When she returned, she looked determined and upset. I waited for a moment when we could be alone to speak with her directly. You know, you have a chance to be a good person if you let yourself. You're smart, and you can see what life on the streets could offer you. A tough, unhealthy life where you might not make it to 30. Is that truly what you want? Here's the truth. If you run away again, you might not come back. In 3 years, you'll be 16. I'll pay for your freedom, give you your money, and wish you the best. But my wife is tired of worrying about you. Do you understand? I think I frightened her. 6 months later, she didn't come home from school. When she did return, she found the doors locked. Luckily, Amanda wasn't there. I opened the door and spoke through the screen. I've already packed your things. You can come in and wait for the social services people. I called them already. They should arrive in about 45 minutes. I opened the door and let her inside. She sat on the couch, rocking back and forth. Soon she was crying and begging. Please, please don't send me away. I'll be good, I promise. I didn't mean to leave. I got scared when I got caught for skipping class. They suspended me for 3 days. It will hurt, Amanda. I didn't know what to do. I was shocked. She usually disapproved of skipping school. Were you cutting class? No, but I was with others who were. Please don't send me away. Celeste, look at me. She lifted her gaze. You need to realize that we are here for you. Amanda cares about you. I care about you. We're a family. We want to guide you and give you a good home filled with love. Let us help you. You should have come to us and told us what happened. We would have been disappointed, but we would still love you. When I told her I loved her, the tears flowed more freely, and she hugged me tightly, crying. Just then, Amanda walked in. What's going on? She asked, looking worried. Our child is growing up, dear. She did something wrong, got caught, and came home to talk with me. I truly believe she understands her mistake and feels sorry. I'll let her explain it to you. I handed Celeste to Amanda and stepped outside to meet the social services worker at the mailbox. Hi, Denise. Sorry for the trouble. It wasn't an emergency. She got caught for something minor and received a suspension. She was scared to come to us. Amanda is inside with her now, talking it through. Denise sighed. I should check in, but I trust you. I can head home to make dinner for Fred, and we can eat together for a change. Thanks, Denise, I replied, feeling a bit guilty for taking her time. Why don't you and your family come over on Sunday? I was thinking about roasting a couple of Boston butts. That sounds nice, Jace, but it's homecoming at our church. There's going to be a big meal. Why don't you all come instead? There's a friendly competition among some of us to see who can bring in the most guests. You guys could help me out. I told her I would ask the girls and went inside. Who was that? It was Denise, sweetie. She saw me outside and invited us to homecoming. Do you all want to go? I wouldn't mind. They have that new young reverend. He's kind of nice. I'll call her and ask what I should bring. Celeste was watching me with a smile. I tried to look serious, but couldn't keep a straight face. She jumped off the couch. I know I'm grounded for a month, but can I still go to church? Bobby Smith goes there, doesn't he? Celeste, you're 13. You have plenty of time for that. Much later, with you two together, it might cause a stir. They both laughed, and Celeste said, Men, before going to help her sister with dinner. At that moment, I felt reassured that my little family would be just fine. This week had been a big one for us. Celeste made the honor roll for the first time and was set to start learning to drive over the summer. Just the thought of her driving at her age made me a bit anxious. Amanda graduated tonight, holding her diploma like it was a treasure. She even got to give a little speech that moved everyone. She spoke about her childhood and how far she had come thanks to someone who always believed in her. She thanked me for being the best husband and Celeste for being a wonderful daughter. Have faith, have hope, believe in yourself. You might not be as lucky as I was, but you'll grow as a person from trying. The next day, we threw a cookout for her, and our home was packed. Mom came down to celebrate with us. Our friends from the bar, most of my co-workers, including my boss, Denise from DSS, and unexpectedly, Jack Edwards and his wife also came. I thought they were still in Italy. After everyone else left, they stayed behind to take Celeste for the weekend. They had married late and didn't have children. June took a liking to Amanda and treated her like the daughter she never had. When Celeste was born, she was thrilled. She took Celeste for a weekend each month so Amanda and I could have some time to ourselves. June always returned Celeste with at least one new outfit. Mom got involved too, so Celeste was hardly home during the summer. I would complain about it, and then they would all attack me playfully. Your girls have been through a lot, Jace. The best thing for them is you. I always wanted a daughter and a grandchild, so thank you for them. So stop complaining about your daughter growing up and bonding with her grandparents. We're meant to spoil her. I have an idea to help Celeste feel better. How about we have more grandchildren? It would make sharing time with them easier. Mom leaned back with a small smile after saying this. We heard Celeste cry, and the women quickly gathered around her, comforting her with soft words. As they calmed down, I wanted to ask something, but Amanda quietly stopped me. June spoke up. Listen to your mother, Jace. You too, Amanda. We're not getting any younger. If you're going to have them, do it soon while we can still keep up with them. I looked at Jack, and he just smiled. I think it's a wonderful idea. Celeste hugged me tightly for a long moment before leaving, holding on to me. We didn't visit the bar as much as we used to. Having kids limits your choices. I still went sometimes after work. Celeste often had activities that needed driving, so Amanda took the lead, driving her to band practice and soccer. I couldn't be around for everything, but made sure to attend all her games. One sunny Saturday, after a soccer game, I listened to her and her teammates excitedly talk about where to celebrate their win. She was going out with friends now, which made me a little uneasy because they tended to pair off. Amanda laughed. Even if you want to, you can't stop her from growing up. This is good for practice before dating one and none. Most activities have chaperones except for movies and trips to the mall. Trust her. She would never want to disappoint you. It was right after Amanda graduated and we were at a church event. The kids wanted to go for ice cream afterwards, so I walked over to them. Here comes your daddy. Ask him if it's okay. Celeste looked at me with her sweet eyes. Daddy, can I go with Mrs. Jenkins and my friends for ice cream? That hit me hard, and tears started to form. Sure, sweetheart. Here's $20. She laughed, grabbed the money, and ran off, calling back to us. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. I'll be home by 7. Amanda needed to drive us home. After that, we became Mom and Dad. It's just easier than explaining every time someone brings it up, and you treat me like your kid anyway. Besides, I like it, she said with a grin. I liked it too. Our friend Sam had a stroke. It wasn't the worst, but he had to cut back on work. Everyone helped out, but soon it became clear that Helen was struggling to manage everything. One Sunday afternoon after church, Amanda came to me. We were getting ready to ride, and Celeste was with friends. Before we go, I need to ask you something. Let me say everything before you respond. It's important. I hoped it wasn't something bad. I love being Celeste's mom. I love being your wife. Helen needs help, and I want to use my skills. I've talked with Helen and Sam, and they support the idea. I want to go back to the bar, not as a worker, but as a partner. Helen will manage the bar with Sam's support. I'll take care of the kitchen. Will you think about it? I considered it while we rode. We stopped at the bar, and I looked at it differently. It was in decent shape, but could use some improvements. Helen came over, and Amanda stepped into the kitchen. What do you think? I think it's a lot to think about. I don't want to lose my wife to this job. You know my history, and I worry about her schedule. Plus, we need to think about Celeste. Also, I need to know how much money we're looking at. In the end, I'll probably agree since she knows I can't say no to her. Helen gave my hand a reassuring pat. You won't lose her. She has it all figured out so she won't be away from you too much once everything is set up and everyone is trained. She has big plans, and even Sam and I are excited. So we discussed it further. I had let her handle our finances because she was great at managing our money. I had a general idea of our situation, but she usually took care of the bills. All our vehicles were paid off, including the minivan we bought for Celeste and her friends. We purchased our house after the lease ended. It was small but met our needs, and we had made a solid down payment, which kept our mortgage low. I owned a small part of my company and was earning good money. Our savings looked good too, so I had no concerns about where the money would come from. In the end, we owned 30% of the bar. We spent some money fixing it up, improved the kitchen, and had a grand reopening. Business picked up quickly. The old customers loved the new look, and new customers enjoyed the atmosphere. The bar now opened at 11 to serve lunch. Amanda worked wonders in the kitchen. The plain burgers and fries were transformed. They still offered them, but with new toppings like avocado slices, hot peppers, spinach leaves, several kinds of cheese, and more. Fries were replaced with home fries, sliced thin like chips and flavored overnight. She also introduced homemade soups. There was potato with cheese and bacon, and a creamy tomato soup. A pork stew with lots of herbs was the most popular dish. One upgrade she made was to get a big gas grill for cooking fresh vegetables when they were in season. She always tried to buy from local farmers and had a big chalkboard near the kitchen door that showed which farm provided the vegetables or meats for the day. The farmers appreciated this. At first, the regular customers were a bit unsure, but soon you could hear them talking about and debating which farm had the best produce and which herbs went well with different dishes. It was amusing to see two big bikers almost argue over whether pumpkin or butternut squash soup was better. She also created a wine list that featured only local wines, with Jack's wine being the most popular. It was funny that they couldn't serve wine in places with pool tables, so Helen and Sam decided to remove those tables. They didn't mind, as that was often where arguments broke out, and they could add 8 more tables in that space. Helen took the lead by making a deal with a local brewer to have their beers on draft. A local food critic came to visit after hearing good things about the place, but we didn't know it until the review was published. The review was titled, "The Best Hidden Jewel in the State," and gave an excellent description of the restaurant. Sam's Bar and Grill, located on Swan Pond Road just outside the city limits, has been around for 75 years. This local favorite has gained new attention thanks to Amanda Gooding, a new owner, and her recent kitchen upgrades. While regulars might have liked it to stay a secret, word has spread and there's no turning back. You'll find a friendly mix of blue-collar and white-collar customers, bikers, farmers, and college students all enjoying the atmosphere. The only time I heard raised voices was when 2 patrons disagreed about which herb should stand out in the pork stew, rosemary or basil. I agreed with the biker, mainly because he was larger, and I've always liked rosemary too. The menu offers simple meals that are well seasoned and prepared, all at fair prices. The service is great, the atmosphere is relaxed, and everything feels very clean. The sanitation rating is 102, just 1 point shy of perfect. I praised Mrs. Gooding, and she promised they would reach the top rating in 6 months if it meant working her whole staff hard. Since it's outside the city limits, they only serve beer and wine, not hard liquor. Helen Connors, the manager and main owner, along with her husband Sam, says they won't be applying for a liquor license even if the city limits change. "It's just a lot easier without liquor," she said. "The bar looks like an old saloon, offering local and national beers and wines. The staff knows their drinks well and can easily explain the difference between a Pilsner, a lager, a Bock, a dry white wine, and a sweet red wine. It might be a bit out of the way, but it's worth the journey. I have been there 3 times and had 3 different meals, and each time I was happy with the quality, amount, and service. Also, you must try the banana pudding. It's my favorite, and it's the best I've ever had," he said. Helen and Amanda exchanged smiles. "I didn't know who he was," Amanda said. "I just thought he was an observant customer who knew a bit." Celeste and I liked to eat dinner there on the nights Amanda was working. She usually arranged her break to join us. Celeste wanted to work there too when she was old enough, and I was fine with that. The place was lively, filled mostly with families, while most of the drinking took place at the bar. Thursday nights were busy with bikers from the local Harley owners group and others on various bikes. They wanted to hold their meetings there, but we didn't have a private area. Amanda, Sam, and Helen discussed it, hired an architect, and almost tripled the size of the restaurant. Soon, even that space was packed. By now, I owned 8% of our agency. Celeste turned 16 and started working part-time after school, learning to cook alongside her sister. She aimed to attend a local culinary school after finishing high school. She wanted a fast dart, but I wasn't going to let her have something that speedy at her age. Instead, we got her a Mustang, not a fast one, but a nice V6. It still went quite fast, though. Amanda was nearly 26, and I was eager to start our family. She agreed, but wanted to wait until Celeste graduated first to focus on the baby. Celeste laughed when she walked in on us discussing this. "Mom, do I seem like a baby? I can look after myself. You should think about Dad and give me a little sister or brother while he's still young enough to help." I thought she made a good point, but Amanda just laughed and said we would talk about it later. Our business was growing too. My advertising for Jack brought in a lot more customers, especially in the local drink industry. We started working with 2 more wineries and 3 breweries, and were in talks with a local distillery gaining some attention. I was at a regional conference when I saw an old friend I hadn't met in nearly 6 years, Ada. She was still beautiful, and her maturity added to her charm. I spotted her first and walked up behind her. "Still worried about color lines? I got tired of waiting for you, but there are a lot of guys here who are really interested," I said, giving her a warm hug. At first, she was surprised, but then she hugged me back when she realized who I was. "Jace, it's so good to see you. How have you been? Where have you been? You just vanished from my life and I've missed you. There were times I could really have used your advice and someone to talk to." We found a table and chatted for an hour. She told me she was divorced because her husband had been unfaithful, and she had found out. He didn't care about the rules about who he could be with. It was a surprise to see him with someone so different from me. I found out and he promised it was over. We tried counseling and I thought we were moving on until she showed up expecting a baby. After that, he vanished and didn't even come to the final meeting for the divorce. I took her hand. "Sorry to hear that, Ada. I know it's hard. Are you seeing anyone now?" "No, it's too soon, I think. I've been thinking about a change. My workplace was sold and I don't like the new management. They only keep me around because I'm good at what I do. I really feel like I need something different." I smiled and pulled out a card. "Have you ever thought about moving to the sunny south? Just think about it and let me know." To my surprise, she took the card. Before we left, she asked about my life. I showed her my wedding ring. "I thank my lucky stars every day for what I have now. I'm blessed with a wonderful partner, a lovely daughter, a great job, and many wonderful friends." I shared pictures of Amanda and Celeste. She looked at them in awe. "How did you end up with someone as beautiful as her? Your daughter looks just like her except for the hair color, and she looks so young. Did she have her when she was really young?" I chuckled and explained. She hugged me tightly, truly happy for me. Later, I realized we hadn't mentioned Becky at all. 2 months later, my boss called me into his office and tossed a resume my way. "Look this over. She listed you as a reference and said you trained her. Is she any good?" I looked over the resume and smiled. "I trained her a bit, but she's a natural. By now, she's probably better than I am. If we can afford her, we would be foolish not to hire her." He grunted in agreement. "Then hire her and have her report to you. Now, we need to discuss something serious. I haven't told anyone else, so keep this between us." "I'm not well, John Charles. It's serious. I have a tumor on my brain. They just discovered it, and it needs to be removed, or it could be fatal. There's a 50-50 chance of recovery. I spoke with Gloria, and we think you should manage the place until I am back if I can recover. If not, we still need you to keep things running smoothly for Gloria's sake." This news hit our close group of friends hard. He and Jack had been close for years. On the day of the surgery, our whole office was present, including Gail. Many of his friends showed up too. He called us all into his room to say goodbye, just in case. Ken, June, Amanda, Celeste, and I took turns holding Gloria. When we weren't holding her, we were in the chapel with other friends, praying for him. He was in the hospital for 5 hours. When the doctor finally came out, everyone held their breath. He's doing well so far. I feel hopeful about his recovery. It will be tomorrow before he is strong enough for visitors. We shouted and cried. We thanked the doctors and God. Ada fit right in and became my closest friend. Amanda and Celeste liked her, and soon she was part of our group. Before long, the matchmaking began. Married women like to think about their single friends. Ada told them she wasn't ready yet. She spent a lot of time at the bar, and soon everyone knew she was our friend, so they accepted her too. I'll never forget when another friend invited her to ride with him on a poker run. He was a large man with a beard, and he was one of the gentlest people I'd ever met. When he was around kids, they would gather around him in no time. Sadly, his wife was unkind and dishonest, having several affairs before he found out. This hurt him deeply and she insulted him. Her new boyfriend tried to disrespect him, which was a big mistake. Sam and I stepped in to help him, got him a lawyer and handled the situation, but the damage was done. 18 months later, he still hadn't thought about dating. To our surprise, Ada agreed to go on a date with him first to get to know each other. It must have been a great date because they both looked so happy during the poker run. 8 months later, she was wearing an engagement ring and was 3 months pregnant. My life took another turn when a woman named Alice Johnson contacted me about a campaign. She had everything planned out, which made me hesitate. Clients often have their own ideas, and some are so attached that they insist we follow their way. I usually suggest they work with someone else, as they often don't understand why things go wrong. Alice was a personal manager who specialized in fighters. Her sister-in-law was Bettina Bang Bang Burke, a world champion MMA fighter. The campaign wasn't for her, but for a charity they both supported. I was unsure, but agreed to meet with her. Ada and I met Alice at the airport for lunch, and she explained her idea. I had to admit it was quite clever. We made a few adjustments, did some focus groups, and decided to move forward with it. Soon, advertisements began to appear, mainly in papers and on billboards. It was a twist on the Got Milk campaign, but instead of milk, they focused on love. Got Love became the main message of the National Adoption Coalition, a group of organizations aimed at finding homes for children in need. The campaign gained a big following across the country. The ads featured well-known people who were adopted as kids, posing with children from various homes, often in their hometowns. They encouraged people to think about adopting a child, and local dairies joined in, promising to donate milk to adoption agencies for every successful adoption. We even included the Fun Milk mustache. Before long, we had many famous people reaching out to us, eager to help. Rock stars, country musicians, athletes, business leaders, actors, Olympians, and Nobel Prize winners, all adopted as children themselves, were thrilled to support the cause. Many appeared with their adoptive parents, and some had even adopted children themselves. Betty and Mark Stewart, who helped start this idea, posed happily with their newly adopted son, which became an instant favorite. This success led my company, High Country Advertising, to win a national award. My boss, Howard, was still too weak to travel, so he sent Ada and me to accept it. Her new husband, Roy, and Amanda came along too. It felt great to be there. We gave our acceptance speech, sharing our gratitude with Alice Johnson, who had the original idea, and thanked everyone present for honoring us. After the awards, there was a gathering. Ada and I had a friendly bet to see who could get the most offers for work. The loser would buy breakfast. I had 9 offers, while Ada had 16. I told her I was in the mood for steak and eggs. Just as we were about to leave, I was looking for Amanda, who had gone to the restroom with Ada, when I bumped into Becky. She looked a bit nervous and uncertain. "Hello, Jace. How are you?" I took a moment to look at her. She was still beautiful, a little heavier, but not by much. Her hair was much shorter, her lips seemed fuller, but she was still the same person I had fallen in love with. "I'm good, Becky. And you?" She waved her hand as if brushing it off. "Oh, I'm all right. Congratulations on your award. It was nice to see Ada again. She says she works for you now." I clarified. "I prefer to say she works with me. I'm a minority owner and manager at High Country Advertising. I've been there ever since. Well, since everything changed. I enjoy it, the area, and the people." She glanced at my hand. "It seems you have someone special." I smiled and rubbed my ring. "Yes, I do. Looks like you found someone too." She had a sparkly ring on her finger and fidgeted with it. "I have, and I'm happy. But Jace, late at night when you're next to her, do you ever think about me? If you had just forgiven me, we might still be together." I sighed. "I used to think about you a lot. But then I met Amanda and you faded from my mind. I haven't completely forgotten you, though. Sometimes a memory of happier times pops up, but it doesn't last long." She suddenly took my hand. "We could start over. I would leave him right away if you take me back. I've never really moved on from you. We were meant to be together." I heard a sharp breath behind me as I gently let go of her hand. "No, Beck. If we were meant to be, you wouldn't have cheated and I wouldn't have found Amanda. Amanda shows more love and loyalty than you ever did. I'm sorry, Becky. I hope you find happiness." As I started to walk away, I felt a small hand slip into mine. "Who's your friend, dear?" Amanda asked with a calm smile. "This is Becky, someone I knew from my old town. Becky, this is my wife, Amanda." They didn't shake hands. Instead, they just looked at each other. I noticed Becky in her 30s and dressed in a simple black dress, and Amanda at 26 with her bright green gown that matched her eyes and her flowing coppered hair. I felt very lucky. Amanda turned to me with a smile. "Sweetheart, I know it's early, but could you take me back to our room? I'm feeling a bit unwell." She paused, covering her mouth and giggling. "Oops, I meant to surprise you tonight. Too late for that. Congratulations, honey, it's a boy." I think I heard someone gasp behind me, but the only thing that mattered was Amanda right in front of me. I hugged her tightly, kissing her and feeling overwhelmed with joy. She had to tap me on the back to let go. There was a big celebration at the bar. Amanda smiled and thanked everyone, but when we got home, she became serious for a moment. "I know who you were talking to in New York. If I ever see you near her again, you'll regret it. Do you understand?" I promised it would never happen again. She then softened and whispered, "Thank you, dear. And I heard what you said to Becky. It was sweet. Just so you know, I still want to chat with her." Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of the exciting stories we have coming up. What do you think about the characters in this story? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.